Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, as we say. How many people do we have here today? All right. So as usual, we always stall at the beginning to wait for more people to join us. So thank you for coming. If you are here and if you read the book, let me know in the chat. We are having Vampire Book Club a little bit late this month. Or next month. This month. No, it's the next month. We were supposed to have this book club on August 13th, but it is the summer and I was traveling and I was busy, so we did not have it then. And now I'm back in my lair and we are having it very much delayed. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. What am I drinking tonight, you ask? It's always the question. Well, our book tonight did have some drinks in it, had several drinks in it, so I picked one that I actually like, and I am having a margarita. I didn't put any salt. I should have put salt on it. I love a salt rim, but I'm drinking with a straw anyway because it is hard to drink margarita with lipstick, so I wouldn't have had much salt anyway. So cheers! Who else has a margarita tonight? What are you drinking? Tell me in the chat. I love to hear about your drinks. I did not mix this margarita. I have that skill, but I did not use it tonight because I very conveniently happen to have in my fridge a bottle of La Vida Bonita margarita ready to drink. This is like a mixed margarita. It's not margarita mix. This is a pre-mixed margarita. They sell it at Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's. I'd buy everything at Trader Joe's if I could. It is a 13.9% ABV, so probably even a higher ABV than most margaritas you would get in restaurants. About the same ABV as a strong wine. So, yeah. Margarita wine cocktail. Just add ice and enjoy, but you should also add salt normally. It's gluten-free because, as we know, margarita is made from tequila, which does not come from wheat. It comes from the agave plant. Nice, nice beer. Yes, enjoy your beer. I almost thought about drinking pumpkin beer, because it's pumpkin beer season, and you know how I love pumpkin beer. But the margarita in this book was just too prominent a plot point that I couldn't pass it up, and I had it in the fridge, so. All right. Yes, more people are coming. Happy to have you here tonight for Vampire Book Club. Vampire Book Club meets once a month here on my live stream. This is it. We are meeting right now, me and you. And we have read a book over the past month. Usually we read from the 13th to the 13th. This month we're running a bit late. And our books are all vampire books. Books about vampires, books with vampires, and also books that I own. The point of Vampire Book Club is to help me read all these books back here on my shelves that you have all sent me. Thank you. You all sent me so many vampire books and my library is huge. So I need buddies to read them with. You are here to read them with me, and I very much appreciate your friendship and camaraderie in reading vampire books, because, you know, reading can be a lonely hobby if you don't have anyone to share your feelings with. Oh yes, you have to try pumpkin beer now. I love pumpkin beer. If you need some recommendations of pumpkin beer, there is a 26 video series about pumpkin beer on my channel. If you go onto the main page of my channel, scroll all the way down, you'll see it at the bottom, or just look at my playlists. It's its own playlist. My friend Nella and I tried every pumpkin beer we could find in the year 2019 because I just had a baby and I could finally drink again, and I love pumpkin beer. And I had kind of missed out on it the year before. Not because I was pregnant yet, but because I was getting married and having my honeymoon. I was very busy. So once I had the baby, I said I'm going to buy every single pumpkin beer I can find in the stores and try all of them. And I'll make a video where we try them and I share our thoughts and feelings and we analyze them and we rank them. And we kept thinking like, oh, maybe we'll get like 12 or, you know, maybe even 20 pumpkin beers. We got 76 pumpkin beers or 71, something. It was huge. Like, we kept thinking we found all the pumpkin beers, and all of a sudden someone was like, oh, I found this pack at my bodega. Here's for your show. And people even mailed us some pumpkin beers, so they weren't regional to where we were. which was New York City. So, you know, New York City has good selections and stuff, but a lot of the West Coast stuff we couldn't get, or the Midwest stuff. So we did get a few things that were sent to us, but mostly it was East Coast or giant national labels of pumpkin beer. And we definitely had our favorites. So we made a chart. There's a chart. It's in the description of the video, I think of the last video. It has our chart and our ranking. And we ranked it all by points and stuff and figured out mathematically which was the best pumpkin beer. Yeah. On my channel, go to my playlists. I have a lot of cool playlists you might not realize that make my channel very organized, helpful for your vampire viewing experiences. But we are not drinking pumpkin beer today. Slightly off topic. We are drinking margaritas because our book this month was When Life Gives You Vampires by Gloria Duke. And is the next book club in 9 days? Yes, probably. I don't think it's actually on the 13th this coming month for the next book club because I think that's a Tuesday and I have choir practice. So it'll be like whatever the following day I have free is. But yes, it's not going to be pushed back a whole month. It's going to be, we're going to catch up. This is the book that took me too long to read because I had busy summer plans. As you can tell from the cover, it's a chick lit type book. Love chick lit. It is a romance. It is a romantic comedy, a rom-com, but with vampires. It has darkness. It has blood. It has killing. Yeah, it has killing. There's one dead person in this. Several dead vampires as well. So it's not, you know, sanitized vampires. But the other thing about this book is that it is a body positivity book written by a fat author about a fat character who is going through a journey to learn to accept her body as it is. Because once you become a vampire, your body doesn't change. And when she was human, her daily struggle was with her appearance and wanting to change her appearance to look the way she thought she should look, the way she thought that if she looked, she would be happy, which is skinny, or at least smaller than she currently is, the way her mother made her think she should look, the way society made her think she should look, and her constant struggle with fad diets, binging and purging, crash dieting, yo-yo dieting, dropping weight, and then gaining it all right back again. The title here is Single, Curvy, Vampire. So yes, when she realizes that as she becomes a vampire, she is trapped in her body forever, she has to learn to love her body, and she does. And it's not easy for her. It is a struggle. It's a very realistically written struggle. I could tell the writer was writing from a place of truth. I thought it was well done. It was not fun to read these horrible things that she felt about her fat body. It wasn't, you know, easy, but it was real. It was very realistically done. There is fat shaming in the book. There is discussion of fat phobia in the book, so these are your warnings. But compared to the other books about fat vampires, which I have several here, the difference between this book and these books. So the concept of being a fat vampire isn't new. The idea that when you become a vampire, your body never changes, you're trapped in your body. Oh no, what if I was fat? All vampires are skinny and gorgeous, but if I was fat when I became a vampire, oh, that would be horrible, right? We're not here for that. So the first fat vampire book I ever read was Fat Vampire by Adam Rex. And this is about a teenage boy in high school who becomes a vampire. And he is not only fat, he is nerdy and a social reject. And he, you know, kind of just wants to get the girl. And he eventually does, but it's funny, it's quirky. It is a comedy book written for teenagers. It does not take itself too seriously. It is a man writing about a male character. This book is Fat White Vampire Blues by Andrew Fox. This is like down south folksy fat vampire. I don't know anything about Andrew Fox or his background, whether he's writing from a place of truth, whether he is a fat person or not, or how well this book is done because I haven't read it, but I haven't heard anything bad about it. It does have a sequel. This one, this is Fat Vampire, same title, by Johnny B. Truant. And this is a 6-book series. This is a self-published series. And the author, he sort of explains his whole story of what brought him to write this book. He is not a fat person. He has a fat friend, so that makes it okay. And he sort of was like talking with his buddies one day. He was like, oh no, what if you look like our friend and you became a vampire? What would that be like? Oh, it would be so many struggles. And so he wrote this 6-book series based on his thoughts of what it would be like to be fat. So this sounds very cringy, and 6 sequels. This was turned into a TV show. It was a self-published book, so whoever bought the TV show rights bought them for cheap because, you know, it's not like a big name or something. They probably thought they were getting a really good deal. But the terrible thing about the TV show, which I believe is called Reginald the Vampire, which is supposedly based on these books, it's not actually. It is actually based on this book. Oops. So in this book, the fat vampire, Reginald, is an adult, and he has a job, and he has adult problems. In this book, the fat vampire is a teenager, and he's in high school, and he has kid problems. So the TV show has their vampire named Reginald, just like this book, but he's a teenager, and his plot and story follows this book. And Adam Rex did not receive a dime from this TV show. So this guy got the royalties, got the option, got the rights, got the money, and then they used Adam Rex's story ideas. We're like, oh no, we just made up our own story ideas. Totally stole it from Adam Rex. He's not said a word about it online that I've seen. He's probably would rather forget it exists at all. I love Adam Rex. I love all his books. He usually writes comedy and children's books about monsters. Frankenstein Makes a Sandwich is one of his books that's my favorite. Frankenstein Takes the Cake is the sequel, and he has a few others. I love him. He's on Twitter. He's great. And I don't know. I thought that was really shady. But so all of these books, these fat vampire books that we've had before, are all about male characters. And they're about the fat guy getting the hot chick, or, you know, a cool girl in general, as well as their vampire struggle and learning to embrace their whatever, or just having daily struggles with being a non-attractive vampire in some way. So this book, being written by a woman from her own perspective as a fat woman, about a fat woman character, was breath of fresh air, refreshing. And knowing that it was a body positivity novel and that the fatness wasn't a joke was also great. The novel overall, I liked it. It wasn't bad. It didn't frustrate me. It didn't anger me. It wasn't the best novel I ever read. It wasn't amazing, but that plot line I thought was done well. And because it's such a rare thing to see in books, I think that makes it elevated above where it normally would have been if it was just like a book for book's sake. Yeah. So our character here is Lily, and she wakes up as a vampire. She wakes up on the floor in her apartment, half naked as a vampire. She has no memories of how this happened. It takes her a little while to figure out she's a vampire. She feels like she's sick. She feels like she has amnesia. She's like, why am I dressed like this half closed state? Did I get assaulted? What's wrong with me? She's in her apartment. She's safe. She lives in New York City. So reading this book had a lot of New York City in it, which was fun for me to read because I lived in New York City for 15 years. It was like going home. And she starts noticing weird things. She can't see her reflection in the mirror. She's craving blood, etc., etc. She just so happens to have a best friend, which is kind of her only friend in this book, but is also her best friend, who happens to be a huge Twilight fan and like into superheroes and comics and stuff. So she knows things about vampires. So Lily's like, I'm going to go to my friend Kat because she is a vampire expert, because she thinks knowing about Twilight makes you a vampire expert, apparently. So she goes off to her friend's apartment. And while she's on there, she's riding the subway, and she's like craving blood, and she's surrounded by the people, and she's like, this is really weird. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I want to attack these people. And then all of a sudden she sees this really hot guy, like the hottest guy who ever hotted, on the subway. And like, just as she's like struggling, he helps her. And then he's like, you know, he's really nice to her and smiles at her. And she's like, okay, that's weird. People never smile at me. I'm the fat girl. People don't look at me like that. Is he trying to rob me? Is he trying to prank me? You know, she's very paranoid. But she's also attracted to him. And then she turns around and he's gone. He disappears. Mysterious. So she gets out the subway. She goes up to her friend's apartment. She tells her friend the story. You know, they have that adjustment period of this isn't real, you know, fantasy, until they eventually come to acceptance. Her friend is a computer genius. She's also super hot. She's like supermodel hot, but she's not into fashion or anything. So she just dresses in like baggy whatever clothes all the time. Yet she could just walk into a room wearing like sweats and all the heads turn her way because she's just a sparkling personality and tall and skinny and blonde and everything Lily wishes she could be. She's not jealous so much of her friend Kat. They have a great relationship, but that understanding is there of what Lily thinks that she should have been. What she thought, if I looked like that, I could be happy. So Lily also volunteers at Kat also volunteers at the Red Cross because she's just like the most amazing person on the planet. So she takes Lily down to the Red Cross where she volunteers, not doing blood stuff, she's doing computer stuff for them because she's a computer genius. And she takes her to where the expired blood is thrown out. And she's like, we have to throw out blood past a certain date, but it's still technically okay. It's like, when you buy something from the grocery store and it's like 3 days past its expiration date, it's still okay. So she gets all the expired blood packs. Lily drinks the blood. She suddenly feels much, much better. All the pain is gone. She's thinking clearly. So having the blood craving is a very debilitating effect for vampires in this. So what do we know so far? The vampires cannot be awake during the day. As soon as the sun rises, they turn off like a light, and don't wake up again until dark. They can't see themselves in mirrors. They have super strength and speed and sight and hearing and those kind of powers. And craving blood is debilitating. Religious stuff doesn't come into it all. Crosses and those things are never mentioned. She doesn't have to sleep in a coffin, but she does have to sleep in the dark. Can't have any light on her. And so far. There's more to it later. So Kat is telling her all she knows about vampires, and she says, whatever you do, don't go out in the sunlight. She was like, but the Twilight vampires go out in the sunlight. She's like, no, just don't even risk it. Don't even do it. What if you just burst into flames? Don't do it. And so Lily's sitting here thinking, oh no, I can never go out and see the sun again. It's horrible. I'm terrible. I'll miss the sun. I never really cared about the sun before, but now that I can't have it, I'll miss it. And then at some point around here, she comes to the realization, sorry, my camera has a mind of its own. Yep, there it goes. She comes to the realization that her body is going to be this way forever. And that's like a horrible wake-up call for her, too. And I don't know if it's here or slightly later, but anyway, we finally get the story of how this happened to her. Like, her memories suddenly come back. I think it's when she drinks the blood, or it could be later. But the story of how this happened to her was the night before, she and Kat went out to the bar, as ladies are wont to do, and had some margaritas. And when she got there, Lily had forced herself into a pair of jeans that was too small. And she was wearing Spanx underneath, and she really struggled to get into these jeans. She's very proud that she got into them, but they were very, very uncomfortable. So she gets to the bar, and Kat's already there talking to two hipster guys. And when she gets to the table, she has this whole inner feeling of like, oh no, both the guys are looking at each other upset, like which one of them is going to get forced to talk to me and which one of them is going to get Kat. And I'm just going to drink more margaritas, please, and order some nachos because screw these guys. And then at some point, she has to go to the bathroom. So she goes to the bathroom, and then she can't get the jeans back on. Like at home, she did the lay down on their bed and pull up the jeans thing, but she can't do it in the bathroom. And it's a single person bathroom in a small bar where it's the only bathroom in the whole bar, and there's a line forming out the door, and she's just struggling. She's like, I don't know what to do. I can't get into these jeans, and I'm stuck in this bathroom, freaking out. So what she winds up doing is getting rid of her Spanx, using a big safety pin to hold the jeans closed without buttoning the fly, so her jeans are like this, being held by a safety pin, and her shirt is kind of long enough that it covers it, and she's just like, well, that's gonna have to do. So that explains later why she wakes up in her apartment in open jeans with no underwear on. So thankfully she didn't get assaulted. So she goes back out to the bar. She's like, this is the worst night ever. More margaritas, please. And she sits at the bar, and there's this really hot guy next to her. And it's the same guy that she saw on the subway. And now she's remembering meeting him for the first time. So he's like the sexiest hot man. He's got that mussy hair, 2-day-old stubble, flaming blue eyes, tall, buff, but chill and cool. He doesn't dress too hard. He's wearing a leather jacket. He's just a cool guy. And he's like, oh, let me buy that drink for you. And she's like, why? Did you lose a bet? Who'd you lose a bet to? Are your friends over there laughing at you? What's going on? and all these insecurities. They start talking, they're flirting, they're getting on, and he wants to walk her home later. So they're walking home, and she's like, okay, something's going on. This super hot guy could not possibly be into me, or maybe he has a fetish. Maybe he is into me, but he couldn't be serious about me. He's not, he's, if I hook up with him, it's not going to mean anything. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't have good luck with guys. We hear her romantic history. She's had 3 boyfriends in her whole life, and they were all not that into her, just like relationships of convenience. No one's ever like really loved her or thought she was special or worth like being with emotionally. Tragic life story. So she gets home, and the guy's trying to get her to invite him in because, surprise, he's a vampire and needs an invitation to get in. Another vampire rule. But she remembers that the way her pants are safety pinned together, and that she's like going to explode out of her jeans, and she's like, crap, I can't invite him in. It's too embarrassing. So she says no. And then he like kisses her goodnight. And then he starts like nibbling her neck, and then she feels him bite her. And she's like, oh shit, he's biting me. What's going on? She starts struggling, and she bites him back. She bites his ear and like rips part of his ear off, and his blood goes into her mouth. And it's like really scary. And she gets away from him, and she runs away, and he's like, wait, let me help you. I'm sorry. But she runs in, she slams the door, passes out on the floor, wakes up the next night a vampire because she drank a little bit of his blood as he was they drank each other's blood is all it takes to become a vampire. So vampires can drink people's blood and nothing will happen to the person, except probably they'll die unless they don't drink all their blood. They can drink people's blood and leave them living. They can take just a little bit. There are people who happily donate their blood to vampires because they're into that. But if you drink any of the vampire's blood back, even just a little swallow like she got from biting his ear, you become a vampire. So now that all her memories are back, she's trying to figure out what to do. And she's got like 3 other things going on in her life besides I'm suddenly a vampire and I have my body image issues. Also, her mother is this they're close. They have a close relationship. She was a single mother. Lily never knew her dad. Her dad's this huge mystery question mark in her life. Her mother raised her alone, and her mother was always not fat shaming her like negatively, but in the way that she thought she was helping her. She'd be like, oh, buy your prom dress a size too small as inspiration, and then you'll lose a size before you go to prom. But of course she didn't, so then she like ripped her dress and had a horrible prom day and things like that. And her mother, just like when she would eat something, just giving her a look and being like, are you sure you want to eat that? Why don't you eat this instead? So yeah, she says that she got over her issues with her mother long ago, and now she can just tune her out and it doesn't like affect her anymore. She's kind of lying to herself, but she's much better. She's not suffering with her mother, and she loves her mother because she's the only family she has. So her mother appears and wants to stay with her, and Lily's like, crap, my mom wants to stay here and I'm a vampire. I'm going to be sleeping all day. How am I going to explain this? The other thing is she has a job. She works nights. She already works nights. So she's like, thank goodness, that makes it convenient. I don't have to lose my job. She works the night shift at a magazine, an online magazine called takeabite.com. Haha, irony. And I don't know why a magazine would have a night shift. I don't know much about the magazine industry. And she can work from home, which she does, but she says she goes into the office. So she goes into this office. It's like kind of one of these big co-working spaces, and they have the magazine staff there, and they have their head person and all the story writers, and they're like, okay, who's going to write this story? And then they sit down and they type and they do their research. She really wants to be a journalist. She has a passion for journalism, detective work, asking questions, getting to the bottom of things. This magazine, she does do stories kind of like that, but it's a joke to her. She doesn't take this job very seriously. She wants to be a real journalist. So after all her memories come back and her friend Kat hooks her up with the blood and helps her as much as possible, she knows she has to get home before dawn. And I think at this point the guy shows up again. Oh, one of the things she learned about the guy before he bit her was that his name is Tristan, but he's also an author. He writes bodice ripper romance novels, historical romance novels, under a female pen name. And he's a very famous romance novel author that Lily's mom read, so she's like familiar with his works. He's that famous because he's a vampire from the 1600s, so he actually knows historical stuff, and he's been writing for 400 years, so he's good at it. So of course he's made a name. He is a famous romance novel author, and it's, you know, it's rare to have men who are authors of that kind of fiction. It is unique. So she leaves Kat's, and the guy is there, and he's like, let me give you a ride home. And she's like, oh no, you attacked me, you know. And he eventually gets her to agree to listen to him. And he's like, there are things I have to tell you about being a vampire. There's things I have to explain. We have to like figure this out. So she agrees to go with him. And he tells her that he didn't mean to bite her. It was an accident. He's not supposed to make new vampires. It is against vampire law. There is a vampire ruling party of a head guy and his 12 like senators. So the vampire council, the main guy makes the laws, and the 12 people, if they all vote unanimously against him, then they can make a different law, but they can never agree on anything. So his word is law. And this guy's name is Gideon. And one of his biggest laws is you cannot make new vampires without my permission, because it's dangerous for their numbers to increase, because, you know, security and safety, and they can't have too many vampires running around. It's very strict. And the penalty for making a new vampire without his permission is death for both the vampire who made it and the fledgling. So he's like, okay, both of our lives are in danger now. This guy Gideon, if he finds out about you, it's going to be a big problem. And she's like, okay, this is scary, but how will he find out about me? I won't tell, you won't tell, we'll be fine. He's like, well, you rode the subway earlier tonight, so all the vampires live in the subway tunnels because it's a great place to avoid the dark. And she's like, ew, that's gross. They live down there like that? Gross. Why don't they live in houses? And they probably saw you. There's no way they didn't see you in the subway tunnels. So they know about you. They might not know that I made you yet, but they know about you. So your life is in danger. And I want to protect you. I want to help you. She's kind of like, oh, no. You're a scary vampire. You bit me without my consent. And he's like, no, wait. I had your consent. I used my vampire hypnosis on you and you said yes. And she's like, no, I didn't. He's like, yes, I did. And she's like, no, that didn't happen. He's like, I thought I did. It usually works. She's like, well, it didn't work on me, and I did not give consent for you to bite me. And even if I did give consent because you hypnotized me into giving it, that's still not consent. That's not how consent works. And shame on you for ever using your influence on people. So that's a point of contention between them. But otherwise, he's really, really, really hot. And her body is like reacting to him. She's just getting extremely turned on. And she's like, traitorous body. And he's saying things like he thinks she's beautiful, and he's complimenting her. And she's like, okay, why is he lying to me? Why is he pretending like he thinks I'm special and gorgeous? Like, what's his game? What's his trick? Is he buttering me up for something? She just does not believe that this guy is actually into her at all. She thinks he must, like, be upset that he made her, you know, of all the people to make, very low self-esteem. So when she gets home, her mom is there, like, surprise, I came to visit you from Jersey and I'm staying here. And she's like, crap. Now I got to deal with my mom visiting. So a lot of things happen really fast. Like, this whole story takes place only over like 3 days. So a little fuzzy on what happens when. So at one point she gets a box of flowers delivered to her door. And she opens it up, and it's this gorgeous lily, like her name, a lily. But when she picks up the lily, its head falls off. And she's like, oh no, this is clearly a death threat. It must be from Gideon. And then there's a card in the box, and it says it's from Gideon. He's like, I can't wait to meet you. We know that the ways that vampires can die are decapitation, being burned up in a fire, I think a stake through the heart, and there's one other way. There's like 4 ways they can die. I forget the 4th way. So she's got the death threat. She goes in, she's shocked by her mom. She has to like get her mom to not notice that she's a vampire. Oh, I think what happens is she falls asleep and then she wakes up and her mom's there. She's like, why were you sleeping so hard? I was trying to wake you up. Surprise, I'm here to visit. And Leo's like, oh shit. And then Tristan shows up at her door, and her mom's like, come on in, hot guy. And Lily's like, no, don't invite him in. So he comes in. And they had plans to, like, meet again. And he turns it into a date, and he gets there, and Kat's there too, I think. He meets her at some point, and the mom's just like, oh, wow, you're interested in my daughter? Wow. My daughter? Really? Wow. So he takes Lily out. He's still into her because he was trying to pick her up when he was at the bar. He did want to date her. So he takes her to the Empire State Building for a date. And she's like, isn't it closed? We can't just go there after dark. And he's like, yes, we can, because we're vampires. So he jumps from the street level to the top of the Empire State Building and lands on the observation deck because he has jumping powers. Vampires can't fly, but they can jump Empire State Building high. And it's very magical. And he has a picnic, and they are eating a picnic up there. And then Gideon shows up with some goons, and they have flaming arrows, and they shoot these flaming arrows at them, and they burn up their picnic, but Tristan and Lily get away, and then Gideon and his goons are like, we'll see you again soon. Yeah, I think something else happens before that. I'll backtrack. We'll get to all of it. And then she tells him about the death threat she got. He's like, why didn't you tell me that you got this death threat? You should have told me these things. And I was like, I'm sorry, I was distracted. You're so sexy. She also gets another death threat of, sun is the other thing that burns up. So she goes to work, and she's at her night job, and she gets a postcard there that says, like, has a beach picture, and it's like, wish you were here. Or she gets that at some point, right? So she gets these two threats. And so she tells Tristan about them. And he's like, well, crap, our lives are really in danger now. And he keeps trying to help her and protect her. And she keeps being like, no, let me take care of myself. You're being, like, really macho and kind of, like, not chauvinist, but, like, old-fashioned with all these, like, gender role things. And this is not how people act in the modern era. And, we can't, don't be like this. And he's like, well, if you drank human blood, you would be, like, human blood from a human, you would be stronger, and then you'd be better able to fight Gideon if he's gonna, like, try to kill you. And she's like, no way, I'm not biting a human. I'm never biting a human. I will not drink human blood. And he's like, well, you could drink my blood. But the problem is, if you drink my blood, you will want to have sex with me. And she's like, no, I don't want to have sex with you. No. And he's like, well, what can I offer? I want to help you. I want you to be stronger. And she's like, nah, just get away from me. Leave me alone. And she's, like, constantly, like, pushing him away. But he keeps showing up and keeps trying to protect her because he does feel guilty for, like, that. So I forget whether this happens before or later, but she does go to work, and we're introduced to her job. And at her job, she has this coworker who hates her. This coworker who's, like, giving her this stink eye. And he's always hated her. His name is Evan. And he's this very sexy black guy, like dark-skinned black guy. He's like our token non-white character in this. And he just hates her, and he's always hated her. But he wants to pitch a story about vampires, about real vampires living in New York City to the editor. And the editor's like, okay. And Lily's like, no, that's a dumb story. You shouldn't do that. Everyone knows vampires aren't real. Why would you even say that? Why would you even say that? And so the editor's like, okay, Lily, since you're such a skeptic on this, you do the story. And Evan's like, that was my story, and you stole my story from me, and I just hate you. And she's like, well, since I have to do the story, you want to give me your research? And he's like, what? Seriously? Me give you my research of the story you stole from me? And she's like, okay. But he does end up actually giving her his research. And in his research, there's this information about this vampire bar, supposedly, like a secret vampire bar that's in a regular bar, but, like, behind it, called the Crypt. So she asks Tristan about it, and Tristan knows the Crypt, and he knows the person who works there. He's like, okay, well, we have to go warn them that someone knows about their bar. But also, I know the owner there, and maybe we can get her to help us against Gideon. No vampire in their right mind would help us, would turn against Gideon, would take our side. But maybe because we can have this information, we can help her. Also, Lily noticed, I guess it was at this point, that Evan suddenly overnight got really swole. Like he went from being like a hot looking guy, but just like to ripped and buff. And when she touches him, his skin is like burning hot. And she's like, oh no, he's a werewolf. And she asks Tristan, she's like, what is he? And Tristan laughs at her because it's so hilarious. Werewolves don't exist. And she's like, what? Vampires exist? I thought he might be a werewolf. He's like, no, he's actually a vampire slayer. Surprise to all of us, because when I made you a vampire, that made a new vampire slayer emerge into the world, like when Buffy gets chosen. There's a lot of Buffy comparisons here. Oh, thank you, Lindy Cow, for the $4.99. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting book club. Thank you for always being a part of book club. So that's another cool piece of lore, and I think that was the most interesting piece of lore that I hadn't really seen done this way in other media. I don't know if it has been or not, but not that I've seen. So by making a new vampire, this doesn't always happen. A new slayer is manifested into the world. And it's usually always someone close to the vampire. It's usually always someone who already dislikes that vampire. So that's why her grumpy coworker who already didn't like her. Yeah. So, also at one point as she was leaving work, she sees this lady waiting in the lobby of her office building who she went to college with. And she's like, what? Kelly? And so we get the whole backstory on Kelly. Kelly was another fat girl in college, and she and Lily were always kind of rivals. Like if Lily did something, Kelly had to do it better. Or if Lily lost 5 pounds, Kelly had to lose 6 pounds. And they always kind of had this weird rivalry, and they were kind of like frenemies. She thinks at some point like we could have been friends, but we were just we hated ourselves that we hated each other because we saw ourselves in each other. It was just a really bad relationship. And now she's like more mature and she feels bad about it. Kelly is like glowed up. Kelly is like glitzed out, glamorous. She's still just the same body type as Lily, but she just looks happy. She looks beautiful. She just got married. She has a huge rock, and she turns out she married the son of like the biggest media mogul of like Fox News, like the really conservative news channel. And so she's super rich, and Lily's just looking at her being like, trying to remember the order here. Anyway, she's looking at her and be like, wow, she's happy. She's still the same size as me, but she's happy. She's just happy, and like she's being nice to me. How did she even get there? She didn't get skinny. How could she be happy with being skinny? So she's sort of having these realizations. She's like, well, I wouldn't want to be happy by marrying the son of the head of Fox News, because that's not my politics. That would not make me happy, but more power to her if she's happy. Wow, weird. At some point, which I think happens before this, she gets home, she keeps getting these death threats, and her mom is been kidnapped. Her mom is gone. And she's freaking out. She can't do anything because the sun's about to rise. Her mom's been kidnapped, and obviously the vampires did it. And then the next night she wakes up, or later on, and there's this news report that a woman has been found dead in the subways, ripped apart, shredded, bites, obviously a vampire attack. So she tells Tristan about it, and Tristan's like, oh no, maybe it was your mom. So they're going to go to the morgue, and they're going to see the body to see if it was her mom. And they go to I forget if this happens before the vampire bar or not, but it's all connected. So she goes to the morgue, and they look at the body, and it's not her mom, it's Kelly, the girl that she had seen at the office before. And she's like, oh no, that's so sad. I just saw her yesterday. How did this happen? This is really weird. Why would they target her? We weren't even close. Like, if this is a threat against me, what does this have to do with me? I don't understand. But the way they get in to see her is Tristan uses his mind control to get the morgue guy to let them in. And when Lily realizes he's doing this, she gets really mad at him too. She's like, that's not cool. You can't mind control people. Not even just to like get them to let us into a morgue. No, you have to stop this. Not cool. And he's like, no, it's a vampire thing. It's what we do. And so then they go to the vampire bar where he knows the owner. Turns out she's his ex. Turns out she's his very, very sexy ex. And her name is Raymond. And she's like a super goth queen vampire stereotype. Absolutely gorgeous. So Lily is immediately jealous. that his ex is so much hotter than her, and the ex is kind of doing that thing like rubbing it in that she used to date Tristan just to make Lily feel worse. And the ex is like, well, why should I help you? Why would I put my neck on the line for you guys? I've got a business establishment here. I'm an important person in the vampire community. I run the local vampire like meeting spot. I can't risk myself like that. And Tristan's like, well, there's a new Slayer, and he knows about your bar. He knows about this place, so I'm here to warn you. Isn't that worth something? Can't you, like, give me something back? And she's like, nah, still too risky. Sorry, Tristan, not even for old time's sake. I can't risk it. But then all of a sudden, the Slayer attacks. So Evan is there. He can manifest a flaming sword out of thin air, and he gets, like, super hulked out powers. But he also loses his consciousness. He becomes just, like, a Slayer mode thing with flaming eyes, and he's just like a zombie killing machine. He's not his own personality at all. So there's this big old fight, and all the people in the bar are evacuating, but Tristan runs in to help. So Lily's like, oh no, Tristan. And she's kind of starting to fall for him. Sorry, I need to dab my nose. So he gives her the key to his car. He's like, run away, drive away. I'm going to go in and help. And she's like, I should run away. It's smart. He's smart. It's smart. I'm not going to be like those girls in horror movies and go running right into the problem instead of running away. The people you screaming at the screen, except I am, aren't I? Yeah, I'm totally going to do that. She runs in, and she gets in there, and she sees Tristan and Raven and a couple other guys cornered by Evan. He's got his flaming sword, and as soon as one of them like goes for him, he swings, and so they're kind of at like a stalemate. They can't get away from each other. One of the vampires gets too close, and the sword just like brushes him, and he instantly poofs into a pile of ashes. Like, that's how powerful this flaming sword is. Like, it's not even a wound. So she's really scared that Tristan is going to get poofed into a pile of ashes. And yes, you're right. That part was very much like Bones having an ex in that book that we read previously. I immediately thought of that scene from, what was it, Halfway to the Grave? Or One Foot in the Grave. It was so much similar, that scene. What is my beverage today? You missed it earlier. It's a margarita in honor of all the margaritas that Lily drinks in this book. Pre-mixed Trader Joe's margarita. So Lily goes running in, and she's like, Evan, stop. It's me. You wouldn't want to hurt me, would you? I'm your coworker, even though you hate me, but I'm your coworker, and I know you're like a decent human being. And she finally gets through his like zombie mind, and then his eyes turn back to normal. He's like, oh no, what have I done? Lily, sorry. And then he flies out the window. So the crypt bar is in like an old church. It's very gothic. It's cool. He had smashed in through the stained glass window. So he like sticks his sword in the air, and it makes like a lightning arc of fire, and then his body just goes like boop, 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 after the fire. So he could just like poof out of places. And Raven's like, wow, you saved us. You didn't have to save us. I was mean to you and catty, but you saved us, and okay, now I'll help you with Gideon. I'll do what I can. I don't know what I can do, but yes, okay, I owe you one because you saved me. So they're kind of cleaning up and getting things together, and Raven's like, Tristan, I want to have a word alone with Lily before you leave. Tristan's like, why didn't you leave? I gave you my keys. I told you to leave. Why didn't you go away? And Lily's like, well, I don't know how to drive a stick. So Raven and her sit down alone, and Raven's like, okay, since you helped me, I want to help you. I'm going to do you a solid. I used to date Tristan. I know him. You shouldn't date him. He's bad news. He's not good. He will never love you. He will never commit to you because he is completely hung up on his ex from 400 years ago. He was absolutely in love with this girl. She died in a fire. He couldn't save her, and he has been like tragically tormented forever since then. I dated him, and I could never have his heart. He never opened up to me. So I'm doing you a solid. I'm warning you. Give up on him. You know, there's no hope there. He is obsessed with his ex, and he has a hero complex, and that's why he's helping you, because, you know, he feels responsible for putting you in danger, but he can never actually love you. And Lily's like, bitch, no. And she like understands where Raven's coming from, but she's also really upset and mad about it. And she's just like, no, she's just trying to like make me unhappy. So she's all conflicted about this, right? So she goes back to Tristan and they leave, and she's got all this like uncertainty in her head. She's like, I knew a guy like him could never love a girl like me, and it's because my body looks like this, and if Raven's his ex, then that's the kind of girl he's into, these super skinny gorgeous girls, and I never had a chance. But they get to the point, I'm kind of mixed up on the order of things. So she decides that, yes, she does want to drink his blood. She needs the power of drinking his blood. And she knows that means it will make her want to have sex with him. And she's also talked to her friend Kat about this. And Kat's like, I would have sex with him and just have sex. He's hot. But she's like all body insecurity and stuff. She doesn't want to do it. But she says, well, if it'll make me want to have sex with him, then I won't be hung up on my body, because I'll have this like vampire drive, and maybe I'll actually be able to lose myself, so it'll be good. And she's really into him at that moment because they're kind of gotten close and everything. And so she's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll drink your blood. And he's like, really? And he's like all happy. So he takes her home and into his apartment, and he lives in the building that John Lennon used to live in. Up on Central Park, the very gothic looking building. It has a name. The name's in the book and I've already forgotten the name. And he's very fancy, and he was one of the first owners, or one of the first residents of the building back before, when it was like first established, and he's lived there for hundreds of years, and it's very, very like vampire romance. Ooh la la. So she goes up to his very cool apartment. She takes a tour, but she's very, very turned on. Her body has been like melting and oozing and squealing all this time. And she gets up there, and she's looking at his shelves of books. It's all the books he's written. And she looks at the covers of the books, and she notices that, like, the girl on the cover of the book kind of looks like Raven. And she's like, oh, so yeah, he does have a type. Oh, maybe I don't want to do this. But, she gets over it. She bites him. It immediately turns her on. And they start, like, ripping off their clothes, and they have sex, and it's a sex scene, and she's very into it. After she drinks his blood, and then when she wakes up in the morning, now her doubts have come back, even though she lost all her inhibitions during it, and it was a very good sex scene for her. Now she wakes up and she's remembering the memories that she saw in his blood, and in his blood she saw part of his past. She saw the girl that Raven told her about, this like beautiful blonde skinny petite woman from oldie times. She's like, oh no, she even kind of looked like Raven. Like, that's definitely his type. Nothing in his past has room for me. Like, I don't fit anything that he likes. And now she's all insecure. So he's not in the bed. He's like, got out. She's like, and he couldn't even stay in bed with me. He's just like me, or breakfast. Oh, one thing, like when they were having their picnic on the Empire State Building, he brought all this cheese, and she's like, oh, I want the cheese. But whenever I eat things like cheese, people like give me judgment looks, like, shouldn't you be eating a salad? And she never lets herself eat those things. He's like, well, you're a vampire now. You'll never gain weight at all. You can eat anything you want, as much as you want, and you'll never gain weight. And she's like, I can let myself enjoy things? Like, it's not even about the weight. It's just about like my brain, and the way my brain like lets me do things. And so that's kind of a wake-up call for her. So he's making her this like glorious breakfast, and he says one of the things about being a vampire is like, why should you not have, you don't need food, but why deny yourself life's pleasures? So they are very hedonistic vampires. So she goes out to his library again, and she looks at the books on his shelves, and she sees that almost every single heroine on the books are blonde, like the girl from his past, or dark-haired, like Raven. There's a couple of them that are redheads like her, but they all are very skinny and beautiful, and she's like, this is not me. I don't fit into his life. I don't fit here. All her insecurities are back. She realized she's ripped off her clothes, so they're all ripped, so she has to like steal his sweatpants and borrow his clothes to go home. And she leaves. And maybe this is when they go to the morgue. Yeah, I think I had things out of order, but you get the idea, right? Okay. So all her insecurities are back. They get more death threats from Gideon. Things are coming. Her mom's been kidnapped. Yeah, okay, yeah. So her mom gets kidnapped after this. So then that's when all that happens. She sees the body and it's Kelly's. And now she has to like find her mom. And they get a letter from Gideon that says, be at this place by midnight. And it's the abandoned subway tunnel underneath the Waldorf Astoria, famous New York icon mystery thing. That's like, there was this subway tunnel for rich people to use to just go straight to New York State building, or the Waldorf Astoria hotel building, without having to like get off on the regular subway platform with Remmel. So that's where the vampires meet. And Gideon says, if you both turn yourself over to me and face your punishment for the crime you actually committed, I will let your mother go free. So they're trying to come up with a plan. They're trying to figure this out. They go up to see Kat to ask her for help. Or Kat's there, and he gives Kat the key to his car and like makes her drive Lily up to her place. Well, Tristan goes. He's like, I'm going to go ask Raven if she can help us and be like our reinforcements. Maybe we can go in there. We can have a plan. Maybe we can fight. We can get away. We got to try. So he goes to talk to Raven and ask for reinforcements. And she goes to Kat's place and they like have a girl talk moment. And like during this time, they've had like a wonderful friendship and wonderful like girl bonding through the story. And it's great to see stories that have two female characters just like existing and being fun and having friends. A lot of times in romances, like, you know, books like Twilight, for example, the female protagonist has no friends. She's all alone. She has no social life. She has nothing beyond the man. Whereas Lily has a friend. She has relationships. She has a job. She has hobbies. She has hopes and dreams. She has her own insecurities that aren't about the romance. Which made me wonder, like, is this technically a romance novel? The plot isn't about will they, won't they get together. It does follow the romance tropes and like the romance story arc, but it does have so much of its own plot that I think it's kind of like a hybrid. It is classified as a romance novel, but it's definitely a romance novel with more. So they're coming up with the plan, and Lily comes up with the idea, is like, why don't I ask Evan, the vampire slayer, for help? Since I got through to him, he could come slay the bad vampires. Well, Tristan and I help my mom. And Kat's like, no, this is a terrible idea. Vampire slayers and vampires don't ever work together. She's like, but I got through to him once. Maybe I can do it again. Kat's like, I really don't think this is a good idea. But they call Evan, and he agrees to meet them at a diner. And they're at like a classic New York City diner. And she orders all this food in a chocolate milkshake. And like everyone's giving her looks about the fat girl ordering the big food. And she's like, you know what? I don't care. If I'm going to die tonight, I am drinking this chocolate milkshake. I won't gain a pound. I know that, but I don't want to care what they think on my last night alive. I'm going to enjoy my last meal. So Evan comes, and they talk to him, and they strike a truce, and they eventually get through to him. And she's talking to him, and I forget if it's here or later, but she's eventually like, why did you always hate me? Like, why was this animosity? I never did anything to you, did I? And he was like, well, Kelly was my best friend, and I came to visit her when you were in college with her, and I saw you fat shame her, and that was really shitty of you, and it like ruined her entire weekend, and it ruined my whole visit with her because she was just so upset about that moment of getting fat shamed when she was so happy before. And Lily's like, I wasn't trying to fat shame her. I was fat shaming myself in the moment, because the way she did it was she saw Kelly eating pizza, and she's like, well, I'm going to the salad bar. She's like, wait, so when I'm fat shaming myself, it has an effect on other people? Like, it hurts other people when I do it to myself? And this is a wake-up call for her, and she's trying to like realize how her insecurities hurt other people. And there's a moment earlier with Kat as well where she was saying things about how nobody could like her because of, you know, what she is, and Kat's like, okay, you know that's really offensive when you talk that way, right? Like, you're really hurting my feelings. And Lily's like, wait, what? I was just trying to hurt me. I was like insulting me. And Kat's like, well, I'm here too, and you're hurting my feelings too. And so she keeps having these wake-up calls about how her body image issues push other people away. And realizing that she was kind of a bitch. Like, she was judgmental of herself, which made her judgmental of other people as well. And not just like jealous of them, but like putting them in boxes and thinking like, oh, because you're pretty, you shouldn't have problems. Like, you're skinny, so why is this thing upsetting you? Like, if I was as skinny as you, I wouldn't let that bother me. I would just be happy to be skinny, you know, this unrealistic view of life. And she's having all these realizations and all these wake-up calls. So Tristan comes back and she tells him her plan that she made an alliance with Evan, and Tristan's like, why would you do that? You know, when he's in Slayer mode, he like goes into zombie mode and he can't tell the good vampires from the vampires and he'll just kill us all. And I just got Raven to agree to come and she'll get there and he'll slay her with all of her friends. She's like, well, call Raven, warn her. And now she's feeling kind of guilty. She's like, maybe this was a bad plan. Maybe I was just trying to do something for myself. I'm tired of this guy thinking he needs to protect me, not letting me be in charge. And they keep having this argument about gender roles and about him being too old-fashioned and not misogynistic, but kind of chauvinist of like, let the man do the thing. It's not really that bad, though. The way it's written, I'm kind of like, she's kind of overreacting here. This is not like, the author thinks that she's having him be too gender roly, but she's not. Like, he's actually not being that bad. He's just being logical. And Lily's being kind of impulsive and abrasive and trying to assert herself too much. So I'm kind of on Tristan's side for most of it, except for the whole like hypnosis consent thing, obviously. So he tries to call Raven and like warn her about the Slayer, but she's already underground, so she doesn't get the message. And he's like, crap, she's gonna think we betrayed her. We like ruined our one ally. We ruined our chance. It's terrible. So they're fighting, it's horrible, and they're mad at each other, and he gives her like the silent treatment, and then they get down to the Waldorf Astoria, and he's like, you should drink my blood again. She's like, what? No, we're fighting. I'm mad at you. I don't want to have sex with you. And he's like, your mom could die. You need the strength. We should just suck it up and do it. I'm mad at you too, but we should just do it. And she's like, fine, we'll have angry sex. And she was like, you know, I always wondered about angry sex. Oh, that's kind of hot. And of course she's like, her body's melting and she's just like looking at him. She turns into jello and stuff. She just can't resist his hotness. And he's very obviously completely into her. And the whole story, she's been denying that he's into her. She's always like, some excuse like, no, he just wants to protect me. No, he just feels guilty about how he let his ex from 400 years ago die in a fire. And he wants to make up for that, but he could never love me because he's eternally hung up on this ex 400 years later, and he's still obsessed with her, and he'll never love me. So she agrees to drink from him again, and then they have angry sex, fully clothed. They just kind of like dry hump each other into completion. But she does get more powerful. She does get stronger. So they go down into the secret subway tunnels, and it's just like really disgusting and full of garbage and like really stinky. And she's talking about how her vampire senses make it like grosser than ever. And they're walking towards where this train car is in the elevator that comes down. And when they get there, they feel all the tunnel, like the creepy tunnel Nosferatu vampires spying on them. So they get there and all the lights turn on. And her mom gets shoved out of a train car by these two vampire goons that are manhandling her. And Lily's like, okay, we're here, let her go. And then all of a sudden Gideon comes down, and he comes down the elevator with his 12 vampire council, and he like makes this entrance, and she was expecting him to be like all black robe vampire gothy, but no, he's like really, really hot. He's wearing like, you know, an Italian Prada business suit, and all of his vampire people are very like classy, refined. And he's like blonde and gorgeous, and he looks like a rock star in a business suit. And she's just like, well, that's not what I was expecting. So she really wants to know why Tristan and Gideon have this beef. Because the whole reason Gideon is really going after Tristan, because he had pre-existing beef with Tristan. And that's why he's taking it extra hard to destroy him for this. Like, he finally has his reason to destroy him. But Tristan will not tell anyone why this. Like, even Raven doesn't know what their beef is. So Raven shows up as well, and she's like, we're here on this side, we're here on this side. She's like, okay, I'm here, let my mom go now. And he's like, well, I don't think so. And of course he's going to betray them. And then all of a sudden Evan comes crashing in with his flaming sword, and he's starting to wreak havoc, and her mom gets like upset and passes out. And so Tristan's like, okay, I'll go distract Evan, you get your mom. And she's like, no, it's too dangerous. So Tristan like jumps up there to try to distract Evan, and she jumps up there with him, and she's like, Tristan, stop, it's too dangerous. And he's like, well, you're the one who made this alliance and stuff. And Raven overhears this, and she's like, what? You made an alliance with the Slayer? You double-crossed me! And she gets mad, and so she runs away with her people and leaves. And Lily's like, oh no, if I had just trusted her that she really wanted to be my friend, I wouldn't have needed to call in Evan, and I could have just trusted her, but I wouldn't trust her because she was pretty, and I have body image issues, and I should just believe that she actually wanted to be my friend, because hot people could want to be my friend. But they fight, and the goons are fighting, and she goes down, and her mom's passed out, and the flaming sword is setting all the like garbage on fire, so there's all this fire and stuff, and they get caught in this ring of fire, and she can't get to her mom because she's on the other side of the fire, but the fire is getting closer and closer to her unconscious mom, and she's like, no, mom's gonna burn. So Gideon jumps into the fire, and during their like villain banter, it comes out that the reason Gideon hates him is because Tristan let Gideon's lover die in oldie times, and therefore why should Gideon care if Tristan's new lover dies? She's like, wait, Tristan let his lover die? I thought the blonde chick from oldie times was Tristan's lover. Wait, what's going on? So turns out the story is that this blonde chick, her name is Mariana, she was Tristan's vampire maker, but she was Gideon's girlfriend. So Tristan had like a platonic relationship with her, and he did love her because she was his vampire maker, but she was dating Gideon. So when she died in the fire, Tristan felt really guilty about it because he wanted to have saved her, but he couldn't save her. So he did have this guilt, survivor's guilt and hero complex over that. But Gideon blamed Tristan, which fed into that complex, for not saving her, letting his girlfriend die. So Gideon always hated Tristan over that. But Tristan wasn't hung up on her as a girlfriend. He was never in love with her that way. So all of a sudden Lily's like, really? Maybe he does like me. Maybe it was really real all along and I had it all wrong and he's not forever in love with a ghost. So things are looking up. She starts like ranting at him, trying to do anything to get him to let her go. And she says something about how like his ways are old fashioned. The laws don't make sense. Like, why do you have to hide down here in these filthy garbage tunnels? Why can't you just live up there? The world actually likes vampires now. If your secret got out, I think most people would be into it. Like, people are obsessed with vampires. Obviously not everyone. And his goons start being like, yeah, why do we have to live down here in the garbage? And so Gideon's like, I'm going to have a revolt on my hands. Yes, okay, I'll take these things into consideration. And so his goons are like, all right. So before his goons can revolt and turn against him, Gideon backs off. He lets them go. Oh, meanwhile, Evan had come in and he was about to slay them all. And Lily was like, no, get my mother instead. Rescue her. Don't spend your time slaying us. Get her. So she kind of saved Gideon's life in that way. So Gideon's like, fine. Truce for now. You're off the hook. I won't punish you for existing. But I'm watching you. And he leaves before his whole, like, system of government can revolt against him. He's trying to maintain his tyrannical control over the vampires. It's going to be hard for him now because, she put ideas in their head. She's here to unionize the vampires. So they get away. It's sunrise. She can't really do anything. The next night she wakes up. Oh, so Tristan takes her home. Evan took her mom to the hospital to get rehabilitated. And Tristan takes her home and she's like, are you going to come in? And he's like, no, your speech made sense. You're right. I have been patriarchal and chauvinist to you. You understand why. You understand why I really want to protect you, but you're right. I've been backwards. I'm too old fashioned. I should have been listening to you. You've been telling me to fuck off and go away this entire time. And I should stop trying to push myself into your life where you don't want me. So good night, Lily. I'm glad everything turned out okay. If you ever need me, call me. Please call me. But I'm going to stop trying to be in your life. So, bye. And Lily's like, no. And she's just heartbroken. And he drives away. And she's just like, I was ready to let myself be loved. And then he left. So this is their, like, end of Act 2 sadness moment. Where she's just like, the part in the romance novel where you think they won't get together. And it's like the breakup part. So instead of saying something like, no, stop, that's dumb, she lets him go. So she goes in, she goes to sleep. She wakes up the next night. Her mom is there, like totally rehabilitated. She's got her nails done. She's fine. And she's like, so, Lily, you're a vampire, huh? And she's like, hey, Mom, you're okay with that? And her mom's like, well, you know, I have a choice. I love you. And she's like, but you know what this means, Mom? I'll never be thin like you want me to be. And her mom's like, I don't care. And she's like, bullshit, you care. But fine, thank you. Thank you for saying you don't care. And her mom's like, I guess it's time I finally told you the truth about your father. Because now that you're a vampire, you might need him one day. You might need help one day. And he can help you because turns out he is the head of Fox News, the media mogul, the dad, not the son that Kelly married, but the dad. Head of Fox News, the like super conservative news mogul, Billy Gultra gazillionaire. And he's been sending us money your whole life. He does care about you. He's married and he cheated on his wife with me, so we've kept you secret. And she realizes that her mom has never dated anyone else and all she does is sit around reading romance novels. So she's been pining for this guy her whole life. And Lily's like getting all these realizations about love and what true love means. And she's just like, wow, okay, I don't want a relationship with this guy, but it's good to know that he does care about me as his daughter. And if I ever really needed help, I could call this like super powerful man and he could help me in some way because he does, you know, in his own way care. And that's interesting. So now she knows the truth about her father. Her mom goes home, they make up, they talk about, you know, the fat shaming and the way she's treated her all her life, and they sort of like make some baby steps toward improvement. And it's good. It's her relationship with her mom is getting better. And she has more moments where she meets with Kat and they have some like denouement reconciliation. She meets with Evan and he apologizes and like, you know, they sort of like bond. She's like, okay, I know your life is hard as a new Slayer. You don't have anyone to help you through this. I had Tristan. He at least explained the ropes to me. You don't know anything. You're Buffy without a Giles. You've got nothing. I understand you. And so they sort of bond and get over it. And she like offers to be there for him. She goes back to work and she submits her story on vampires that she was supposed to submit. And her boss is like, she like faked a really stupid story, and her boss is like, yeah, this is dumb, and he kills the story. But she does write the real story about the real vampires, and she sets up this system with Kat, with like this computer like program where if she doesn't log into her computer before midnight every single night, then the news story will go to her media mogul dad, who's super conservative and would hate vampires. She's like, oh yeah, the world loves vampires now, you'll be fine. But obviously the super conservative people would hate them. So if it goes to Fox News, then the vampires are in shit. So that way she's safe, so Gideon can never like sneak up and kill her, because then, you know, that news will go live. So that's her protection against herself. And she has all these like moments of like fending for herself and getting over, but she's still so upset about Tristan and pining for Tristan. And you know, her mom is like, don't wait your whole life for love to come. Like, yeah, you have eternity, but don't wait. You know that he writes those romance novels, right? He's a romance novelist. Follow the romance trope. This is the way his brain works. He needs a grand gesture. He needs you to come through in the end with some big gesture. And so she's like, what should I do? So she also goes to see Raven. And she's like, Raven, I was an asshole. I didn't trust you. I didn't think that you could ever like me for me, or that you were really trying to do me a favor. And I should have trusted you. Girl to girl, we should have been like better to each other. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to betray you. I wasn't trying to betray you, etc. And Raven eventually like forgives her, and she's like, I can tell you Tristan's tragic backstory. Will that be like a peace offering? And Raven's like, yes, please tell me his tragic backstory. So she does that, and they share a bottle of tequila. Like, not even margaritas, like straight up tequila now. So then she takes the bottle of tequila, which she only had a few shots with Raven. She takes it over to Tristan's house. And she goes up to his apartment. And she knocks on his door. And he's like, Lily, what's wrong? I'm here to help you. What's wrong? And she's like, no, nothing's wrong. I just wanted to see you. And he's like, why? You don't like me. You keep telling me to fuck off. You keep telling me to go away. You don't like me at all. And she's like, oh, no. He really thinks that. And he says, she's like, what are you doing? Because he's like wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, and she's like, wow, he looks hot even like that, but what's he doing? He's like, oh, I was writing. I'm a writer. I sit at my computer and I write. That's what I do with my life. And she's like, oh, you're writing another historical romance novel. He's like, no, actually, I'm writing a contemporary novel. And she's like, oh, wow, changing with the times. He's like, it's been hard. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I want to succeed at. And you were kind of my inspiration. And so she goes and she's like, let's play Never Have I Ever with tequila shots. And she has to explain the game to him like 5 times. He doesn't understand it because he's old-fashioned and it's charming. So she starts being like, never have I ever felt good about my body. And never have I ever thought that I was worth loving. Like all these like emotional epiphanies she's had. And eventually gets to the point, it's like, never have I ever loved anyone as much as I do now. And then he reaches for his glass. She's like, oh no, he's going to drink, which means he has loved someone else more than he loves me. But then he pushes his glass away. And she's like, oh. And then they like fall on each other and they start making out and they have wonderful sex. And they live happily ever after. Ever after, because they're vampires. And it's supposedly a happy ending. There is a second book coming out, but it's about entirely different characters. It's not about them. It's in the same universe. It's in the same premise, but it's not about them. So we are to understand that they do live happily ever after as boyfriend and girlfriend. Oh, and Evan at some point fell for Kat, but he didn't fall for her because of her super hotness, like everyone else is always drawn to her best friend Kat, which Lily was kind of jealous about. He fell for her sparkly personality. So she hooks Evan and Kat up, and then supposedly they'll get to date and they'll have their own love story. It's very sweet and romantic, happily ever after ending, which romances have to be qualified as romances, or at least happy for now. They are vampires. Forever is a long time. But turns out he did just love her for her. He thought she was a sexy redhead with beautiful green eyes. It's not so much like, yeah, I like large women because in my time, large women were considered hot. No, in his time, the people were like gorgeous, like she saw in his blood memories, but he still liked her for her. And he doesn't have a reason for liking her because she's fat or in spite of her being fat. He's just like, it never, like the fatness didn't even register to him. It wasn't part of it at all, which I thought was nice. Maybe a bit unrealistic, but it was nice to see that in this book, that it was nice to have that exist. It was romantic. And in a romance novel, you can have things like that. The main complaint that people in the book club had about this book was the writing style. It was written in first-person point of view from Lily, first-person present tense, which I like a first-person present tense novel because you don't know if the person telling the story is going to die or not. If it's first-person past tense, you know they lived through it, and you know they are telling the story in retrospect. But first-person present tense, they could die. That is always a possibility. But she writes very much in her own voice, and like so every time she thinks like an she writes the She has like some weird quirky slang words that, you know, maybe like a teenager would use, but it seems weird that an adult journalist would use like weird slangy words like this. So she's like things like this, like, I try to wrap my head around this idea of my undeath. So anytime she thinks that she's going to say a word, or if a word is kind of a weird pun, she always prefaces it with an written in there. And that's kind of obnoxious. I was fine with it, but I could see why it would annoy other people. It was a tight book. It didn't have any parts that I thought should have been cut out. I didn't feel like anything was missing. The writing style may be for you, it may not. The voice of the character may be obnoxious to you, it may not. You might find her quirky and relatable. She is a very horny character, so when she talks about her like sexual feelings, it's very visceral. We get a lot of, you know, the way her body is physically reacting to the hotness of Tristan and so forth. Never is she drawn to another person. There is no love triangle here, even though she describes Evan as like super hot and sexy, and it's this sort of like enemies. It's not enemies to lovers with him. He doesn't end up falling for her. They're just enemies to friends, and he falls for Kat. So it's sort of a well-balanced, monogamous sort of situation. And Raven ends up being cool. She's not actually into Tristan anymore. She's not pining for him, and she gets over the whole like bitchy thing. You know, gals being pals. Her relationship with Kat ends up good. Her relationship with her mom ends up good. Her relationship with Raven ends up good. She has like 3 female people in her life. Her life does not revolve completely around this man. She still has her job. She has her other friends. She's friends with Evan now. And the man is just like the emotional part of her fulfillment in her like fulfillment triangle with all her other things. And her body positivity journey, she admits at the end that she's not all the way there, but she's on her way there, which again is realistic. Like that kind of trauma doesn't magically heal overnight or over 4 days or however long this novel takes, even if you are a vampire. But she has eternity to work on it, which is great. She has a moment at the end where she throws out all her clothes that are a size too small, that were like her Thinspiration clothes. And she says she's kind of sad to throw them away because it feels like she's giving up. But she knows, obviously, she can't drop that size, so she's not really giving up. It still feels that way. But once they're gone, she has this moment of being like, once I got rid of everything that, like, pinched and pricked and hurt me, there was room for all these things that fit me. And then I felt good. Physically, like, good. And it's this revelation for her. And I thought it was pretty moving. I would recommend this to people that are looking for positive female feminist books. People who like rom-coms, people who like romances. Not my favorite book ever, but I didn't dislike it. I'm not really into, I mean, I am into romance. I do like it. I do like romantic comedies. This gets compared to Jane Austen. It gets compared to Bridget Jones's Diary, which is a retelling of Jane Austen a lot. It's called Dumpling with Vampires because of the whole mother relationship, though. Her relationship ends up a lot better than Dumpling's. If you read that book, as another body positivity book. Thoughts, feelings. I have not been reading the chat, so if you ask me any questions, here's your chance to ask me again. Can't get over the title of the stream. Well, like in the end, the vampires weren't really what was threatening her existence. You know, she got over that in one night. And I saw people saying that they thought it was unrealistic how quickly Gideon gave up and let her go. Which I didn't think it was, because he saw his vampire underlings like starting to think to revolt against him, and he was like, oh shit. So I thought that was fine. But that being resolved that quickly makes sense, because the vampire wasn't the real threat in this. It was her self-image. That was the true enemy in her life. That was the vampiric force in her existence that she needed to slay, that she needed to conquer, so she could embrace happiness. So she could realize, I can be happy looking the way I am. I don't have to be physically different in order to also be happy. She realizes that her body isn't anything other than the vehicle that allows her to experience the world. Like, my body is what lets me feel. My body is what lets me taste. It's what lets me have all this amazing sex I'm having. Without my body, I would not have all these great feelings that I feel. You know? And she's on her way. I like that message. No, YouTube, I am not going to insert ads. This is not a good time to insert ads. All right, I'm going to scroll up in the chat. Here is your time to ask more questions, and we'll get back to them. Oh, thank you, Victoria Start, for the $5 Canadian. It was nice to see a fat person be seen as desirable and lovable, even when said person does not feel that way. Yes, it was nice. And Tristan just thought she was cool. He thought she was beautiful. He thought she was fun. He liked talking to her. And he didn't like her because she was fat. He wasn't like, ooh, I'm into big girls. You know, it wasn't about that. Or he wasn't like, I like you even though you're fat. No, he just liked her. Just her. Score out of 10. I mean, a score out of 10 is like, what am I ranking it against? What am I ranking it for? Like, against all the books that we read in this book club, and as much as how I liked it, it would be on the higher end, because there's books in this book club that I've thought needed better editing, that I thought weren't functional books, weren't tight books, weren't finished books, that maybe I like the premise or the plot or the stories or the characters better. But this book as a book is a solid book. Like, this book is not didn't need more editing, didn't need any rewrites, didn't need any more drafts. Like, this is a book. Which you think would be the very basic for getting a book published, but it's not. Yeah, it would definitely be like if you split the books we've read in vampire book clubs in 5 and up and 5 and down, it would be in the 5 and up quadrant, because it was a book. The real vampires were the mindsets we made along the way. Yes. Score-wise, I don't know, 7, 6 or 7, probably. So what happens to the Slayer when a vampire is killed and vice versa? Does the Slayer lose his power? It doesn't say. There aren't any other Slayers in the book, so I gather that all the Slayers have been killed up till now, that the vampires have won. He's the only Slayer that exists as far as we know. Though the but the second book that's written in this universe is from the Slayer's point of view of a new vampire. And that one takes place in California. So this one's in New York City, that one's in California, which those are the 2 places I've lived in my life, right? I spent 18 years growing up in California. I spent 15 years in New York City. So I'll see my 2 coasts. I would read the second book. I wouldn't like run out and get it and read it, but if one of you sent it to me, like you sent me this book, thank you. And we'd read it for book club. So that one's from the Slayer's point of view. They're a newly becomed Slayer, and the vampire that newly became a vampire, that is the reason for their manifestation. Of course, they hate each other at first because that's how it happens, and they sort of become like enemies to friends, I think, or maybe even enemies to lovers. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions that would have made it better? I didn't really feel that anything was missing. Like, the things that I didn't love about this book were just preferences, like style choices, like whether it was for me or not for me. If there's definitely an audience that loves this kind of like quirky, cheesy, not shallow, but kind of like surface level rom-com style chick lit book, there is nothing wrong with that. Like, we are not here to shame chick lit at all. It is not actually shallow, though it has that reputation. There's themes and messages. But it does have that sort of surface polish to it, and I'm not going to look down on that just because it's not my personal preference. Some people in the book club were frustrated that Lily kept making dumb choices, that she was too concerned with being like, well, I want to be a woman who does things for myself instead of letting the man make the choices, and therefore her choices were bad. But it was realistic. It felt real. I definitely felt she was overreacting a lot to things that he did that she thought were really chauvinist or misogynist or too like old-timey macho. That I was like, that actually wasn't that bad. Like, I see his point, but I feel like that's sort of the reader's benefit, that if you were in that moment and a man was acting that way to you, maybe you would act like Lily, or at least Lily would act like Lily. So if she hadn't done those things, we wouldn't have a story, right? So we needed a character to do those things in order for the story to actually exist. So I wouldn't have changed those. It's just sort of one of those things that you get mad at the character, but not at the writing. Is it weird to say that you imagined Cillian Murphy as Tristan when you read the book? Never. It's never weird. Why are you identifying so much with a story about a lady that gets vampired? Because that's what vampires do. Vampires are us. Vampires can be anything. This is why I love vampires, why I love vampire media, vampire stories, vampire books and movies, because they can represent literally anything. The vampiric forces in our lives, the negative, takey away-y forces in our lives could be a vampire. It's a vampiric sensation. And those are so many things. Anything that takes away joy or positivity from our life, or just health from our life, anything that's like on the good side of existence from our life, anything that draws that away from us is a vampiric force. And the vampires can represent that in media. What happens to a vampire's body if they get liposuction? Do they just immediately get it back? I don't know. That's a good question, because like you're taking a chunk of their body out of them, I guess it depends on the lore, right? I don't know about in this book, but for instance, in Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, which this felt a lot influenced by, if not directly, then osmosisly, right? So Anne Rice's vampires, they never change. Their bodies are forever the same. They cut their hair off, it's grown back completely to exact the same length the next night, same with their nails and everything. But if you cut their arm off, that doesn't grow back. That's just gone. If you like rip out their eyeballs or cut out their tongue or chop off their leg, it's just gone. It doesn't come back. So I feel like if you took liposuction, if you took fat out of the vampire's body, it wouldn't come back. So I think it might actually work. Though there are certainly other lores of vampires where it would just magically poof back. And especially plenty of lores about vampires where if you chop off the arm will magically grow back. They're like lizard creatures. Let's have more margarita, mainly because the ice is melting and it's all watery now. I need to balance it back out. It won't fill it all the way up. You're welcome. Just don't mean me like falling asleep on you. I enjoyed this book because it gave us a lot to talk about. It gave us a lot to think about. There's some vampire books for you for book clubs and you're like, well, what does a vampire represent in this? I'm like, I don't know. Capitalism sucks. People suck. Bad guys are mean. But this is, you know, the vampirism was her body image issues, was society's treatment of fat people, the way people would give her these looks when she was at restaurants trying to eat, the way the men would ignore her in bars and all that kind of stuff. For you, the other way around, the vampire's always been a representation of rebellion towards a society that outcasts me for being autistic and female and chubby. Well, okay, if you are the vampire, then yes. But if society is the vampire, then no. You can think about it from both perspectives. Is society the vampire that's taking away from you as a person for the things that make you not normal, right? Or are you the vampire, the outcast that's shunned by society, that's treated as a monster by society? You can look at it from both sides. It could be either way. I wonder if there are any books about vampires falling for having children with werewolves. Well, there's a series called Underworld. Have you seen it? She does have a child in the 4th movie. Her half vampire, half werewolf baby. Ha! Sophia said the same thing. Thank you. Yes. It's good margarita. Trader Joe's, and it's affordable too. I love Trader Joe's. Everything there is affordable. So, I recommend this book. It's not 100% unproblematic. It does have some things that are kind of cringy, but it comes from a place of lightness that works. And I like Adam Rex in general. And it's an entirely male perspective and young child perspective on being a fat vampire. These 2 books, question mark. I mean, just from what I've read about this one, I'm inclined to like be against it from the start. But I do have this book and its 6 sequels, so I feel like we're going to read it at some point. Look at him. He's a vampire and he's eating fried chicken because he's fat. Whereas this one seems more sympathetic and more wholesome, just from the summary that we've read. So I would be more interested in reading this. And it does have 1 sequel, which is less commitment. But what are we reading next, you ask? Since my whole book pile fell over. I will tell you. I've never struck you as fat phobic. Is that something that came naturally to me or something that you had to consciously evolve? I had to consciously evolve. My mother raised me to be fat phobic. My mother would take me out in public and like point at a fat person and be like, look at that. If I ever become like that, just kill me. She was horrible. And you know, that was what was ingrained in her too. Like she wasn't consciously malicious. It's just the way society represented her. And I grew up in the 90s when like the Barbie doll body was ideal. And the 90s was an incredibly fat phobic time to grow up. Like it was rough. So I had to consciously unlearn it. And, you know, just being around diverse people, educating myself, going through it in my 20s, you know, once I grew up and went to college, and the internet became a thing, and I was just suddenly exposed to a lot more perspectives, and I unlearned it. I don't think I've ever fat shamed people as a child, but I certainly was obsessed with my own body image, and I I took diet pills in high school because I was obsessed with the idea that I had to be skinny. And I was never, I've been overweight. Like last year I was 170 pounds. But as a kid, I thought I was fat when I was not fat. And I was always trying to lose weight and always trying to be skinnier. And I was never the fat girl in school. And I had friends that were. And a lot of my friends, because I was the nerdy outcast, so I hung out with the other people who felt like outcasts, which a lot of them were fat people. So I always thought I needed to lose weight ever since I was 8 years old. Because here's my sad life story. When I was 8 years old, my mother sent me to her parents' house for the summer, and they lived out in the country. So I had this wonderful countryside summer with my grandparents, and they fed me ice cream every single night. And I came back kind of like a little butterball child. I was adorable. But I was running, and my mom pulled me aside, and she said, when you were running, you were jiggling. And I was 8, and I had never even thought about my body before that. But I felt so ashamed that, because I came back home and I stopped eating dessert every night, I lost that weight pretty quickly. But even though I kind of went back to just an average kid size, I thought I was fat forever after that. And I took diet pills obsessively, unhealthily, until I decided to have a baby. And then, of course, I stopped because it's not healthy for the baby. And I've always had body image issues. After my second baby, I try to not be above a certain size. Not because I think I should or because I think it's better or anything. Part of it's because I am a female presenting person on the internet. And if you are above a certain size, people are really mean to you. And I don't want people to be mean to me. I feel like I shouldn't let that bother me, but I do. So I've definitely weight fluctuated. Like I said, last year I was 170 pounds. And then I started taking diet pills again. I'm currently on diet pills again. And I have lost almost 40 pounds. And that's not because I think I should. I used to say, I don't care how I look or what weight I am. I just want my clothes to fit again because I had all these clothes that I can't wear anymore. It's all body image issues. It's all shame. It's culture. It's phobia. Meanwhile, I'm over here with my friends who are fat, unapologetically, unashamedly, not trying to change their size fat. And I'm like, yeah, you go, you be, yes, but not for me, right? The main reason why I did want to lose weight, because, I got to the point when I was that size up until last year, I'm fine. I'm just going to buy bigger clothes. Look how comfy I am. This is fine. I watch what I eat and I'm healthy. And my thing was then that even though I was only eating healthy things, very healthy diet, I still was staying that size, and I was kind of frustrated. Again, thinking I need to lose weight because I'm on the internet and people look at me and it's part of my brand. It's not. It doesn't matter. Do you know how many fat goths there are who are gorgeous? It's fine. But here's the nerdiest part of it. Some of my friends have lately, over the past couple of years, started talking me into cosplaying. And I got in my head that I really wanted to look as much like the characters as I could, and they were certain body types. So that's kind of my motivation to lose weight now. But I don't think anyone should or has to. I go to the gym a lot. I work out. I have muscles. You want to see my muscles? Look. I know, you're like, where is it? I don't see it. It's there. I swear it's there. I want to be buff. I want to be strong. I want to look good in costumes. Not that fat people don't look good in costumes. See, it's this whole society thing. We're all so messed up. This has been Real Talk with Maven. No one should feel pressured to be a certain size, certain shape, certain look. Do what feels right for you, and don't be unhappy. Gosh, do what makes you happy. Don't think you have to be different than you are to be happy. Learn from Lily in When Life Gives You Vampires. But yeah, no, it's been a journey for me. And I was not raised well in that journey. And my poor mother who raised me that way is still stuck in that mentality. She's like in her 70s and still dieting because she thinks she needs to be skinny. I'm like, Mom, you're an old lady. Just eat the food you like and be happy and enjoy yourself. Yeah. It feels strange talking about these things as a person who is not fat, but still has struggles with it. And, you know, you look at people whose story this belongs to, and it's like, this is not my world, this is not my story, and I don't want to take away from the actual voices in this, but it has been my upbringing and my life, and it is part of who I am, like body image issues, big part of my life, big part of my insecurities, which have driven me in like a lot of different directions in my life. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have body insecurity at some point, right? America sucks. This society sucks. This world sucks. The 90s sucked. Things are better now. So much better now. Definitely not 100% better, right? Still so much fat shaming and fat phobia in the world. It is so much easier to be supportive of your loved ones than it is of yourself. It is. You guys okay? Are we okay? If I have offended anyone with what I'm talking about here, please let me know. I'm trying to be honest, but I don't want to be offensive. And if I've said something wrong, please tell me. Like I said, it's not my place to talk about a lot of things that are for fat voices. And a lot of people think fat is a bad word, an insulting word. It is not. It is just a descriptive word. Words like obese or overweight or plus size or those kind of words can be offensive and degrading. But fat is a neutral word that we should embrace and accept as not negative. So what are we reading next time on Book Club? A very different direction. Changing gears. New direction we have. Our next book is Sucker by Daniel Hornsby. This is a brand new novel that just came out this year. For our vote, I put up 3 brand new novels that just came out this year. This is the one that won. 2 are by women, and this one was by a man, and the one by a man won. So I'm like, is it the patriarchy? No, but it sounds interesting. This one's a thriller novel. Actually, kind of all 3 of them were thriller. But I will tell you about this novel, brand new out this year. Daniel Hornsby is author of Via Negativa, which I have not heard of. Are you familiar with that? It's got a lot of praise on the back. That's what it says about him. He holds an MFA in fiction from the University of Michigan. Oh, his stories and essays have appeared in the Los Angeles Review of Books. So I think this is his first novel, because I don't know what Via Negativa is, if that was his first novel and this was his second. Exceptional, horrifically hilarious, and deeply original, says Kevin Wilson. Okay, you ready? Bad Bloods meets Succession in the sharp-toothed satire of Silicon Valley and the 1%. Chuck Gross would like nothing more than to prune himself from his family tree. He's already clipped his name, turning Charles Grosshart Jr., son of a billionaire labor exploiter, weapons manufacturer, and climate change denier, oh, it is very much like Succession, into ordinary good guy Chuck, the self-made proprietor of an up-and-coming punk label. But when Daddy threatens to cut him off, Chuck is forced to get a real job. And conveniently, an old college friend has just swept back into his life with the perfect opportunity. Famed Harvard dropout and biotech darling, Olivia Watts, says she is on the verge of totally reinventing the field of medicine. But when Chuck signs on, he soon discovers that things at the vast Kenosis campus are not quite how they appear. Secret labs, vanished employees, and mutated test subjects seem to be as impossible as they are sinister. Is Olivia simply a scammer, or does her technology threaten to usher humanity toward a far bloodier fate? Moreover, does Chuck, who has never accomplished anything without the aid of Daddy's money, stand a chance of stopping her? Daniel Hornsby hilariously skewers the insatiable hungers of the ultra-rich in a novel that no one will be able to resist sinking their teeth into. So it doesn't sound like Chuck becomes a vampire, but it sounds like, I guess, Olivia's science experiments create vampires, and now he's got to deal with it. But the real vampire is the ultra-rich 1% billionaire, labor exploiter, weapons manufacturer, climate change deniers of the world. Those are the real vampires, right? Yeah, we know it's a vampire novel. I mean, the cover makes it clear it's a vampire novel, even though vampires are never mentioned in the summary. But we got a fang dripping blood. And you wouldn't have sent it to me if it wasn't a vampire novel, right? Because those are the books he sent to me. I'm excited. This sounds really prescient. It sounds topical. It says it's funny. I like funny books. Sounds interesting. It's not that long. So you have until September 13th to read this book. We will have our Vampire Book Club shortly after the 13th. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I have choir practice now. I'm going back to singing because I'm trying to be positive about myself. Like, I stopped singing for a while because I started feeling really insecure. And I'm a member of two choirs. One is a church choir down the street because church choirs are free and they're always happy to have anyone come sing for them, and it makes you feel really good because they're just like, yes, please sing for us, whereas everyone else is like, oh my God, stop singing. So yeah, that's why I sing at a church choir, even though I'm not really religious or anything. And the second choir is my city's local gay choir, which is full of all queer people, and it's a much bigger, much more professional choir. You have to pay to be in. It's like a dues thing, but you don't have to audition to be into it, so they accept everyone. So I can go sing with all the other gay people in town and make some gay friends, and that'll be fun. So that choir practice meets on Tuesdays. Church choir practice meets on Wednesdays, so we won't ever have Vampire Book Club on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, at least until the end of the year. So if the 13th falls on one of those days, we're probably going to have it on Thursday. Real Vampires Hate Their Thighs. Is that a book? I haven't heard of that. Is that a show? Oh, thank you for thinking I'm cool. My mom thinks I'm cool. Just kidding. My mom thinks I am. No, my mom is fine. I'm not going to talk about my mom. October does have Friday the 13th. Which is my wedding anniversary. It's my 10th wedding anniversary. My 10th wedding anniversary is on Friday the 13th this year. So we will not be having book club on the 13th. Because I will be doing something. I don't have any plans yet. Something cool on Friday the 13th for my 10th wedding anniversary. Congratulations to me. I have defeated the divorce rates in America. My marriage is great. My family is great. We're going to have fun. Are there any vampire stories that show an asexual point of view where the asexuality is not ingrained into the vampirism as a whole? That is a great question. I can't think of anything offhand. If anyone has a recommendation, please share it. Because a lot of times vampirism does like default to asexualism, and it's an asexual take on existence. But for that not to be the take, for us to have sexual vampires but still have a story about asexualism, that would be interesting. And I've never heard of anything, so if there is out there, I would like to know. You're curious about plans to cover the rest of the True Blood series on my YouTube. Well, the 3 seasons that I did cover were sponsored reviews, which means someone came onto my Patreon and clicked the tier that says choose me to review a TV series season, and they requested, or 3 people requested seasons 1, 2, and 3, or maybe it was all the same person. The person who requests the review is always credited in the credits of the video, so you can go see No one has requested season 4. So if someone comes onto my Patreon and requests season 4, I will review it. If not, I have no plans currently. Could happen. Who's to say? Any marriage advice? Marry your best friend. Marry someone who would be a great roommate. Your forever roommate. That is the most important thing. Someone who you want to live with. And you know, if you want kids, if you want a family, someone who you want to make a family with. If that's not the person your partner is, maybe you don't get married. You know, everyone's life is different. Everyone has different priorities. It's different for everyone. This is what worked for me. The Strain? What about The Strain? I did seasons 1 and 2 of The Strain review on my channel. Funny story about that. So the person who sponsored my review of The Strain season 1 pledged to the sponsorship tier. And usually a person will pledge to that tier, pay the fee, and then they'll go back to the regular tier. This person didn't. He just stayed at that tier for several months and then disappeared. And I was DMing him being like, okay, so did you want me to review more seasons of The Strain, or are you just paying this to be nice? Like, what is your request here? Just disappeared, just stopped talking. And the reason they eventually stopped paying me that amount every month was because their credit card started being declined. They never said anything, so I'm like, what happened to this person? Did they sign up with their credit card and then like something terrible happened to them and the credit card kept being charged until it ran out of money and then poof? I don't know what happened to this person. It's kind of mysterious. So I was like, well, I'll just keep reviewing seasons of The Strain since they did keep paying me this great promotion fee. But then COVID happened at the same time as I was reviewing The Strain, and I'm like, this is too heavy, this is too hard, I can't. And I may go back to The Strain eventually, but oh God. Reviewing The Strain during COVID, the very first days of COVID. Yeah. That's why I stopped after what I stopped at for COVID. And that person never came back being like, yo, where's the rest of the things I paid for? He just disappeared. So I'm like, well, at least he's not sitting over there being disappointed, feeling like he got cheated out of his money or something. There are people who have paid for sponsorship requests that I have not fulfilled yet, that I will. It takes me a while to do things sometimes. Sometimes I would do things really fast, and sometimes it takes me 3 years, you know. But I do get to everything eventually. And anyone who wants to support me, pledging to my Patreon is a great way to do it. I love the super chats here. Thank you to people who give me super chats here to support the book club. But you can also support me by pledging to my Patreon. If you pledge $2 a video or more, you get first access to the videos. You see them before I make them public on YouTube. Sometimes it could be like a day. Sometimes it could be like 3 weeks. It depends on the video and when I'm timing it out. I don't charge my patrons for these videos, but the other videos I charge them go towards these videos. So the patrons are essentially supporting the Vampire Book Club and the Discord server and these live streams. So thank them for it, even though these aren't technically charged videos. It all goes into the same pot, right? So by supporting my other videos, you're supporting the Vampire Book Club. Thank you. Other ways you can support me is on Tumblr. They have a tip jar now. You can support me on Tumblr. I think there's like a one-time support thing. You know, there's ways. I don't know. Whatever. If you want to support me, you would. If you don't, just watching my videos is great. Clicking the like button, subscribing, whatever. Leaving comments on the video is great. Because that makes the algorithm on YouTube support them more. So you're all leaving great comments in the chat here, but if you also leave comments on the comment section of this video, that'll make this video do better, right? Because this video has ads on it. It is monetized. I don't run the ads through the middle of the video because, I don't know, that's obnoxious, but they're at the beginning and the end. I don't make a lot of money off of YouTube, but like every penny exists, so, right. Besides Anne Rice and book club, is there any vampire media I've been into this lately? I mean, I'm watching all the vampire, nothing that I'm like obsessed over, like super excited about. I haven't seen Last Voyage of the Demeter yet. No, I don't get the chance to actually go to the movies very often. It's not like part of the lifestyle I have. That's not like something I can do. But when it comes out on streaming, I'll probably watch it. I did love Renfield. I watched most of The Invitation. I haven't finished it yet. What have I been watching lately? I started Good Omens season 2, finally. I didn't have access to Amazon Prime, and then finally my dad let me borrow his. So now I'm finally watching Good Omens season 2, which isn't vampires, but supernatural. Love it. So the coolest thing I've done lately is when I went back home to visit my dad, which is why Vampire Book Club is late this month, because I was back home for 2 weeks out in LA. So do you remember a couple years ago I did an interview with Juliet Landau, who had a movie coming out called, sorry, I'm blanking, Blame the Margarita. Anyway, she had a movie coming out and I helped promote it, and then we were doing live screenings of the movie, and I was running the talkback panels after it, and I was very heavily involved along with this movie along the way. It's won so many awards. It's done so many like indie things. They are also producing a documentary about vampires in fiction and what they represent and what their metaphors for, which I'm like, that's what my entire show is about. So since I was out there in LA, they're like, do you want to come and we can interview you for this documentary we're doing, and we'll just talk about all these vampire things, and you can just, you know, share your thoughts and be in our documentary, and just like little clips of you saying things about vampires. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So they sent me the interview questions ahead of time. It was 9 pages of questions about various vampire movies and what they represent and what they're about, and books, and mostly movies, but books and TV shows as well. Like 9 pages of questions. So I went out there to their Hollywood studio. I got my hair and makeup done by a professional, and I sat in the interview chair, and they asked me the questions. It was cool. It was fun. And we were there for 4 hours of me just answering questions about, what does this movie represent? What is this a metaphor for? Do we have... Then they kind of had their list of metaphors they were looking at, and I was supposed to talk about vampire movies that fit with those metaphors. And that was a whole experience. I don't know when this documentary is coming out, but it was a very fun to be part of. Very cool. When it comes out, you'll definitely hear from me. If they use my stuff, sometimes you can film like 4 hours worth of footage for something and then you don't actually wind up being in it. We'll see. But Juliet Landau is the producer, and it goes with A Place Among the Dead and The Dead. I think she has a couple like names along that line. If you watch A Place Among the Dead, the movie, which is finally coming... Oh, yes. So The Place Among the Dead, the movie, is finally coming out for anybody to watch anytime. So before that, you had to catch one of their like streaming events or festival events. And they were all online, so you could buy a ticket online and watch them. But it's finally coming out where you can just buy the movie. And with it is coming a whole bunch of extras. And they're putting some of the footage that I did for the interviews in those extras. So I had to sign a release to allow them to do that. So you'll see me in those extras that come with the movie. So I'll share some links with that when it's actually available for you to buy. And just being there and filming that thing and talking about all this vampire media. And a lot of it was media that I've done videos about. But I did videos about maybe like 8 years ago. So like the few nights before the interview, when I actually got the list of questions, I was frantically going back through my videos and reading all the transcripts of my videos, being like, what was that movie about again? What were the metaphors there? Oh yeah. And it was funny, like I didn't even get to all of them. So we get there and she's asking me about Daybreakers and stuff. I was like, I did an entire video about Daybreakers and I'm just blanking on it. Sorry. So there are some parts where I didn't do as well as I thought I could. And a lot of parts where, as I was saying my responses to the questions, 3 seconds after the fact, my brain was like, oh no, you could have talked so much deeper about that. Oh, that was a really shallow answer. Oh, you didn't get into this about that. And I'm just like, Nyeh. It's hard doing things live, doing things on the spot, doing things unscripted. If I had done a scripted responses to these questions, we would have had like a TED Talk, like a thesis for this conversation. But because it's a documentary in an interview format, it's going to be very off the cuff, very like what's on the top of my head. They loved it. They were very grateful. They said everything I said was amazing. They were very sweet and nice. So hopefully it's good. But I feel like I could have done better. So I'm afraid that when it comes out, people are going to be like, oh, Maven, that's all you got to say? You can do better than that. I'm like, I know I could. Isn't it always that way? Juliet Landau is great in everything she does. You should watch Ed Wood. You should watch Buffy. Okay, I was confused. I definitely want to eat that. Eat what? What are we talking about again? Watch that. Got it. Oh, thank you. Yes, book club is very off the cuff. But you know what the benefit of book club is? I'm always drinking. So there goes my inhibitions, right? I'm like, I need my courage juice for book club. Now we're going to hydrate with Powerade Zero. Thank you. I'm using a straw today. Usually I wear lipstick that's kind of like dry finish so it doesn't come off on things, but this is moist lipstick, so we got a straw. 4 hours interrogation. Yeah, I did kind of feel like that, but it was fun because we were talking about vampires the whole time. Speaking of my lipstick, I've been enjoying sharing my makeup with you. So for today, I used my Cthulhu Cocktails eyeshadow palette because I don't know, the book had a lot of drinking in it. They went to the bar, they had margaritas. So I'm like, cocktails, right? She's holding like a margarita. So I was hoping there'd be something margarita-y in this book, but there wasn't. So I ended up using, let's see here. Okay, so I used the Cthulhu color, like the actual Cthulhu color on my lid. And then I used the Golden Age color in my crease. And then there's another palette. See those colors? I used the Underground color as my highlight because they do go underground. They go underground into the subway tunnels, so I thought that was appropriate. And it's sparkly, and I love sparkles. Sorry, light's reflecting. There we go. It's that reflection of my arm. And then on my lips, tried something new. It's a little darker than I usually go. This is the Black Panther partnership with MAC that they did, I guess last year it was. So after that, they all went on clearance. Why is my camera zooming out? Yes, come back. Thank you. So this is, they had a color called Wakanda Forever, which is just black, which I bought, but wearing black lipstick, you need like a certain vibe for that. This is called Thicker Than Water. So Black Panther, the Dora Milaje, Thicker Than Water. It's got like cool patterns on it. It's like a dark purpley color. It is a creamy liquid lipstick. So I gotta use my straw to drink my drinks. I buy things on clearance. I never pay full price for anything. When I bought this, I got it when they were having a buy one get one sale. This is from Vampire Cosmetics, Vampire with a Y Cosmetics, which is a very cool company. It's a small independent company, but they've been in the news lately because they were going to do, okay, sorry, I have to Google something real quick. Okay, yeah, so they were going to do a collaboration with Alice Cooper, the rock star, to make a makeup line with him. But he did an interview recently where he had a lot of transphobic comments. Kind of ignorant ones, like you could tell he was trying to be like PC and nice about it, but he just said some really transphobic stuff that just betrayed like his basic underlining of thinking, like the way his brain works. So Vampire Cosmetics canceled the deal. They canceled their deal with Alice Cooper to do a collaboration on makeup palettes because he said transphobic shit. And it's been in the news a lot lately because, you know, people can't get away with transphobia everywhere. I mean, clearly they're getting away with it in lots of places lately, but not everywhere. And Vampire Cosmetics is a small independent brand, very tiny brand that could have really benefited from a partnership with fucking Alice Cooper. And they stood their ground and they stood up for it and they let their morals stand and they canceled the deal. So go support them. I don't work for them. They don't pay me. They don't even know I exist, but I like their products. They have some cool eyeshadow palettes. Vampire with a Y, cosmetics.com. They got a lot of cool stuff. Yeah. Cthulhu Cocktails, cool eyeshadow palette. I also have their Dracula palette, their Wuthering Heights palette, Jane Eyre. They also have a Cthulhu desserts, like Cthulhu cupcakes palette. Very cool. I like sparkly eyeshadow. That's what it looks like. I can't see it, but you can. We're having fun. I like Powerade Zero, the red color. I don't like any of the other colors. I bought Gatorade Zero recently because it was the one on sale. I never paid full price for anything, so I bought this because it was on sale. But then I bought Gatorade because that was on sale that week, and it just tasted gross compared to Powerade. Powerade doesn't pay me. I don't work for them. I'm definitely on the Powerade Zero side of the zero sugar drink train. Never going back to Gatorade Zero. Good night. 5:30 a.m. in Tel Aviv. Thank you for joining us. You are dedicated. What else is in the news of vampires? I'm checking the time. It's 10:30. My microwave is blocking the time, which is why I'm like this. We've been going for 2 hours. That's good. Usually we're an hour and a half. So, other news is the interview with the vampire TV show. AMC's Anne Rice's interview with the vampire TV show has resumed filming, or it's about to resume filming, even though the actors' strike is not over, because AMC has struck deals with Interview with the Vampire, Walking Dead, and one other show to continue filming these 3 shows, which were halted mid-production, like almost done with production. But the thing is, even though they struck deals and they've made the actors happy and they're giving the actors what they want for these 3 productions, they're still fighting the strike for everything else. So they're like, yeah, we'll give our deals just so we can get these 3 productions done because we've already invested the money and we're going to lose so much money if these productions don't happen. We're already almost through filming the season. Let's just get the season done. We'll give those stupid actors what they want. Meanwhile, they're still fighting the strike for everything else. So now we're in a conundrum. We're going to get our TV show that's actually going to get finished. We thought it might not, because when you lose that much money, sometimes you just scrap a project, which would have been probably smart for them to just scrap Interview with the Vampire completely. Sad, but smart. You know I don't love the show. I don't even like the show, but I'm seriously obsessed with the show, and I want to see what happens, and I want to see what they're going to do. I don't think they're doing a good job, but I still want to see it, and I'm going to watch it. But because they're not supporting the actors' strike in general, because they're not actually giving the actors what they need and want, and or even dealing with them, compromising with them, for the reasons they're having the strike in the first place, can we support this show? Even though they're giving this show what it wants, they're still fighting the strike in general. Shady. It's sketchy. It's shady. And if we were to watch this show, it would show them that we're okay with that. And we're not okay with that. We support the strike. We support the actors and the writers strike. And that's an entirely connected thing. So can we even watch this show? Do we have to boycott it to help support what we need to happen? The show won't actually come out till next year. Maybe the strike will be resolved by then. Maybe we'll be allowed to watch the show with a free conscience. It's going to be hard to say. It's going to be real hard to say. But I don't think what they did by striking these deals with these 3 shows is cool. Selfishly, I'm glad that the show's resuming filming. But why they got to be like that? Why can't they just do this for all the shows? Why only these 3 shows and then go back to fighting all the other shows? In the news, right? In the news. Speaking of Interview with the Vampire, I'd like to show you my fabulous t-shirt. Can you see it? So this is Louis, and this is Lestat, and this is Armand. At the very bottom here we have Claudia. Can you see Claudia? I'm going to fall over. So this is a t-shirt based on the movie version of Interview with the Vampire, not at all connected to the TV show. Hot Topic is releasing a line of Interview with the Vampire merchandise by WB, which produced the movie. WB is not affiliated with the TV show. It is only affiliated with the movie that came out in 1994. So next year is 2024. It is the 30th anniversary of the movie. So they have released a small portion, a little pile of Interview with the Vampire merchandise. We have, I think, 5 t-shirt designs, which you can get in a variety of colors. So You can get this in shiny gold, or you can get it in red, I think is another option. You can get it in regular unisex t-shirt size. You can get like girly baby doll t-shirt size. There's different versions. I have 4 of the shirts. Okay, so I went to Hot Topic because I'm like, I gotta get the Interview with the Vampire t-shirts. And they only had 2. I did this when I was back home with my family. So I went to the local Hot Topic there in California, and they only had 2 of the shirts. So I bought the 2 they had, and I really liked them. And then I went on the website, and on the website, they're like 30% off everything. I'm like, damn it, I should have just gone on the website. So on the website, I ordered 2 more of the shirts that they had, as well as the eyeshadow palette that they have. And the eyeshadow palette for the Interview with the Vampire merchandise tie-in is in the shape of a cassette tape, because, he gets interviewed on a cassette tape. The vampire, our vampire, Louis, gets interviewed on a cassette tape. So we have a cassette tape shaped eyeshadow palette, which is connected, and it makes sense, but cassette tape doesn't feel very vampire-y. It doesn't feel very romantic. It doesn't feel very gothic. Like, of all the shapes that are part of that movie, they had to choose a cassette tape for the shape? Really? The colors in the cassette tape, the names of the colors in cassette tape, I have it now. I will share it with you on my next Vampire Library video, where I actually show off the stuff that I buy. I got thoughts and feelings. It's weird. It feels like a quick cash grab tie-in that doesn't actually make logical, thematic story sense in any way whatsoever. But I still had to buy it anyway because it was 30% off, right? Yeah. So there's still one more t-shirt that I don't have, which is like my least favorite of the t-shirts. Like, I have to get them all. Like, okay, so this is 30th anniversary merchandise tie-in. They also released the Funko Pops. We have 3 Funko Pops. We have Louis, we have Claudia, and then we have alternate Louis with his scythe ready to like slice up vampires and kill everybody. What we don't have is a Lestat Funko Pop. And the reason for that is that Tom Cruise long ago refused to allow any merchandise of his self as characters. So even though a Funko Pop isn't going to fucking look like Tom Cruise in any way whatsoever, because it's his character, it is not allowed to be merchandise. So we are never going to get a Lestat Funko Pop. We're never going to get a Lestat doll. We're never going to get a Lestat anything. Okay, I'm going to see if I can make my camera go up. Up, up. Go up, camera. Up. What if I do this? Go up. I'm trying to show you something behind. Okay, there we go. So you see on that shelf, slightly underneath the coffin, there's a doll of Louis. Oh, he's chopped off again. Let me stay standing. There we go. Okay, so you see just next to my head, right there. I know it's small. That is a 11.5-inch doll of Louis, fully articulated like a Barbie doll, actually bigger than a Barbie doll. In his Brad Pitt costume with his Brad Pitt hair, he comes with 2 alternate heads, one with the hair tied back, one with the hair loose. Gorgeous Brad Pitt, fully costumed Louis doll. We will never have a doll like that of Lestat because Tom Cruise says no. Which, he has his reasons, and I get it, but it's sad for me. It's sad for me. Because Lestat's my favorite, and he's the vampire I actually want merchandise of. Thank you. There's an upcoming Armand Funko Pop. Oh my gosh. I do not like Antonio Banderas Armand. I do not like him. With green eggs and ham, I do not like him at all. But I will have that Funko Pop. He's grown on me. Like, when I was a kid and I watched it, I was like, that's not Armand. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't sound like him. His attitude isn't like him. But as I've grown up, I was like, no, wait, maybe his attitude is like him. Maybe he is very Armand-y in personality, even though he's older and he doesn't look like him at all. Maybe he does have the Armand vibes. So I'm warming up on Antonio Banderas Armand. Don't remember. Well, it's not an actual Barbie doll. It's not Barbie brand. It was made by a Chinese action figure company that has since gone out of business. But it's not even like if they stayed in business, we would have gotten the Lestat doll next after the Louis. Because they couldn't. I mean, I don't think this was legally sanctioned by WB either. I think it was like, one of those things under like Chinese copyright immunity that they got away with, but still. You're going to read all the Vampire Chronicles books next year? Good. Good. He looks more like Santino than Ramon. I guess in that he has black hair. Santino was a really gorgeous vampire if you like burly Harriet. Like, why Ratman evil if so sexy? Good night, Gaz. Thanks for coming. It's great to see you. I know, we're getting kind of late. We've already devolved into talking about Anne Rice. I've told you about my merchandise. Stuart Townsend was the superior Lestat? Are you trolling me? I mean, he's fine. He did fine with what he had to work with, but the script was, like, the lines that he was saying weren't Lestat lines. My audio is messed up? I'm sorry. I hope it's just you. And my microphone is what it is. Sorry. We're at the end of the day now. This is just like real talk with Maven. Chilling, drinking my Powerade. We always get down to Anne Rice. But you know it's topical because I got the t-shirt. I wore it on purpose for you. Do you enjoy my t-shirts? Can you see Claudia down there? Sorry, I'm gonna stand up again. There, now you can see the full t-shirt. No, stop it, camera. I have to like get up on my tiptoes. No! Okay, I give up. You see my new coffin up there? My new Funko Pop coffin? That one. That one. That one. I wish I could control this camera, like I could mouse move it. That would be great feature. There's not a feature my camera has. I'm sorry the audio is messed up and skipping. Is it because I'm moving too much? That's frustrating. I'm sorry. Perhaps that's a sign that we should come to it. No, I have one more thing to show you before we end here. So I went to the grocery store today. And my grocery store today sells Squishmallows. And of course, like, Halloween is coming. So I look for the Halloween Squishmallows. And they had, like, a candy corn demon with devil wings. They had, like, a mummy. It was like a green mummy in orange wrappings. They had a witchy thing. And then they had, like, all the Harry Potter mascot things. I was like, are we still doing Harry Potter? Where they had, like, a Gryffindor lion and a Ravenclaw raven. Even though the Ravenclaw's mascot is an eagle. I guess it was going off the movies. Anyway, they did have a couple vampire things. So they had this guy. So the first year that I noticed that Squishmallows did Halloween squishes, they had Dracula, they had Frankenstein, they had like all the classic Universal monsters. And I got the Dracula and Frankenstein. I have forever regretted not getting the other monsters. And ever since then, they've done things that aren't vampire related. They'll do like a black cat or like a candy corn or a witch or something. But this year they have a vampire again. Not the same as my Dracula one, which is up there on my shelf. He's blue. This is Vlad. See, his name is Vlad. His little Squishmallow story is that he's a homebody during the day, but at night he's the lead singer in a mallow metal band, the Skeleton Squad. When he's not on tour or in practice, you can find him napping the day away. Want to know his guilty pleasure? Spaghetti and meatballs, but hold off on the garlic bread. He is a metal singer in the metal band, the Skeleton Squad. I don't know who else is in this metal band, but he's very squishy and lovable, and I love him. I know Squishmallows are like the knockoff brand and Squishables are the real thing, and there's this whole rivalry and the like Squish fandom. I'm not in the Squish fandom, but I know Jenny Nicholson and she is, so I hear things. So yeah, that's my Vlad. They also had this little bat. His name is Grimes, and I read his story, and it's like nothing batty or vampire-y at all. It's kind of disappointing. But he is a little bat. He has wings. He has a little piggy nose. He has little ears. And double horns? I don't know what's going on there. Fangs. Little furry tummy. Keychain. Had to get this bat. For my grocery shopping today. I went grocery shopping to buy my kids some milk and eggs. Because you have to feed children. Did you know that? love drinking blood from a human. Much better than from a bag. Yeah. Yes, this is what a Squishmallow is. The rip-off of Squishables, which somehow got more famous than Squishables. I do have some Squishables as well, which you have sent me. You all sent me so many wonderful things. Can stand up again. Come on, camera. Come on. Okay. Up, up, up. I'm going to move my head. Okay, you see those little, like, Plague Doctor things on the top? Those are Squishables. Those are the actual authentic brand. You see that coffin up there? That is the coffin that my Louis doll, this guy, came in. He came in his own coffin. Very cool. And we also have up there, that's a Squishmallow. I think it's a black cat, like, trick-or-treating bag that when Paul went to the grocery store last year, my 3-year-old fledgling spawn was like, let's get that for Mama. Got it for me. He's a dragon? This is a dragon? He's got fangs, though, and bat wings. I mean, I like dragons, too. I would like him better if he's a bat, but if he's a dragon, I don't think he's a dragon. I still love him anyway. You know what? I love him anyway. Neil Jordan recently said he'd like to add 40 minutes of footage back in an interview with the vampire. Oh my god. Okay, so one of the like greatest lore things about the interview with the vampire movie was they filmed the scene in, okay, so in the book Interview with the Vampire, when they're at the theater and all the vampires are going to kill Claudia because they figured out that she killed Lestat, and they're like, this way we can kill her. And they're going to wall up Louis in the wall as his punishment. And then Armand rescues him, and then Louis gets his revenge on the theater. He burns down the whole theater and like chops up all the vampires as revenge for killing Claudia. In the book, Lestat is there through all that. He is there. He has shown up. And Louis thinks he's there to be like, yes, kill them. They tried to kill me. Let's get them. And Louis was like, no, tell them that you were an asshole to us and that we didn't know the truth and we didn't know the laws. And Lestat's like, no, kill them. That's not really how it happened. When we read Lestat's book, we realize that he had been starved and tortured and forced to say all that. Convenient. And they filmed that. They filmed that scene. Because the movie was made after Lestat's book, they filmed it informed by what really happened. So we would have seen like Lestat's actual emotional truth in that, not just Louis' point of view. And there's a few production photos of that scene of Tom Cruise in the costume with his face all scarred up, but wearing like the fancy opera clothes and everything that he wore in that scene because Armand forces him to dress up so that Louis won't realize he's been starved and tortured. And then it never made it into the movie. Those pictures, very few pictures are out there, but the footage must also exist, and that's what they're going to add back into the movie. Oh my god. Thank you, please. I've been waiting my whole life to see that. Where did you hear about Neil Jordan recently saying that? If it was an article that you have a source of, can you please link it? Link it in the comments of the video, not the chat, just because sometimes I can't get back to the chat and see things, so I can click it later. Please, 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 please. Or come into the Discord and share it, please. I would really appreciate that. Because whatever else he said when he said that, I also want to read. You're squeeing too? Yes, we're all squeeing. All right. I love talking about vampires with you guys. Sometimes I think about live streaming just for fun, but I don't know what to talk about. Like, I need something to talk about. I also think about inviting people onto Vampire Book Club so I have like someone to like parlay off of and we can discuss one of these days. But I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you supporting me. I love talking to you about vampires. You're being kind of quiet in the chat today. A few of you are talking, but I know a lot more of you here who aren't saying anything. So if you feel like you want to ask me questions, please do. Don't feel like you're not allowed. Just talk in the chat. We're here. It'll give me more to say to you, and then the stream will go longer. But because things have dwindled down, it seems like it is time for us to wrap up. we read Lost Souls in this Vampire Book Club previously. If you go to the Vampire Book Club playlist and scroll down, you'll see where we read Lost Souls, and you can watch that stream and see what everyone in the chat said about it. If you want to join Vampire Book Club, you can join my Discord server. When you join the Discord server, you have to read the rules and go to the bot channel and click that you accept the rules, and then all of a sudden the server will appear. Like when you first join, there's nothing there, but once you do the rules, you get the server. And if you want to join the book club, you have to click the book icon, and then you get access to the private book club channels. You don't have to actually read the book. You can just lurk and watch and participate in the book club without actually reading the book. Always a possibility. We are reading Sucker by Daniel Hornsby. We have until the 13th to read this. That's 9 more days, and then we'll start the next book. Our actual book club stream will be a couple days after the 13th at least. And then we'll choose the next book. If you have thoughts or feelings about what you want the next book to be, like we just read Chicklit Romance, and now we're reading this prescient satire about topical 1% are the vampires of the world-ness. What would be something that would be different than that for the sake of variety? I always want to keep things different month to month that we could read for next time. If you have an idea for a type of book, please tell me either in the Discord server or in the comments on this video, so then I can choose books off my shelf that fit that type of book, and then we can vote between those books, because that's always fun. If you have a specific vampire book you really want us to read, you can recommend that book in particular, but it's better if you recommend a type of book. If there is a vampire book you want us to read for Vampire Book Club, but I do not own, you can send that book to me, to my P.O. Box. The address is in the description of this video. If you don't know which vampire books I own yet or not, a list to all the vampire books that are on my shelves in the library and all the videos I've done about the vampire books I own. There's 3 lists because I used Amazon to make the list, and apparently there's a 400 thing limit on Amazon lists. So I have 3 lists now. So more than 800 things. Those are all in the description of the video, the 3 lists. So click those lists. You can check to see if the book you're thinking about is already on my list. That means I already have it. If it's not on the list, you're welcome to send to me. Or if you don't want to do that, you can suggest it to me. I will put it on my wish list, and maybe someone else will send it to me, and I'll get it at some point. Or if I'm like out shopping and I happen to see it in a used bookstore or on clearance or something, I'll get it. Like I said, I never pay full price for anything. But if it's on sale, I'll get it. I'm looking forward to this one. This one sounds fun. In the Vampire Book Club on the Discord server, there's 2 channels. One is for suggestions and where we talk and where we vote about what to read next, and the other is for discussion about the book. You are free to say anything you want about the book we're reading, spoilers included. If you don't want people to be spoiled, you can cover your spoilers with black bars, the way you can do on Discord, so you can say whatever you want, talk about it as you're reading it, live tweet it, live blog it as you're reading it. If you have thoughts or feelings or questions that you want me to bring up on the live stream next time, put them in the server, because I read through all those comments the day of the live stream to remind myself what people have been saying so that I can address them on the server. If something you said that I don't bring up here on the stream, you can put it in the chat and remind me, and I go through the chat and I'll say anything that you guys say. If you want to support the Vampire Book Club, join my Patreon. Even though I don't charge for the Vampire Book Club there, your support there ultimately supports the Vampire Book Club. You can also leave me super chats here on YouTube, which I always appreciate, though YouTube does take a very large percentage of them, so Patreon is sort of like more bang for your buck, I guess. Thank you to all my Patreon patrons. You make this possible. If you weren't supporting me for my other videos, Vampire Book Club wouldn't be able to happen. What do we have coming up next? My next vampire review video is a review of the Vampire Tarot deck, which you can see right here on my shelf. It is a brand new Vampire Tarot deck that just came out, which is in bookstores everywhere. You can find it on Amazon. The creator of that deck, so the author, the mind behind it, not the person who drew the pictures, he hired an artist to draw the pictures for him. He came on my show and did a tarot reading for me of that deck, and also explained the deck to me as he was doing that reading. And I made a video about it, and that is going to be up next on my channel. My Patreon patrons will get to see it first, and then shortly thereafter, it will become public on my channel. So you'll learn about this tarot deck in particular. You'll learn what my tarot reading was and what was in my cards, which was intriguing. And this was my tarot reading before I went on my trip back home to see my family. So it was my tarot reading of about 2.5 weeks ago. And some like interesting developments have happened since then. And also some news about the upcoming vampire balls that are happening in New Orleans around Halloween, which I will be at. He is the official tarot reader at the Endless Night Vampire Ball in New Orleans this Halloween. And there is also the Anne Rice Fan Club Vampire Ball, 2 totally separate unaffiliated balls. I will be at both. If you are going to be in New Orleans this Halloween going to either of the vampire balls, I will be there, and I hope to see you. If you see me there or anywhere in public ever, please say hi. I always like saying hi to people who like vampires. Do I have a link for my favorite makeup set? I don't know that I have a favorite makeup set. Like, I have lots of things I like this. I don't have a link for it, but if you go to vampirecosmetics.com, vampire with a Y, you'll find this is very cool. They have a bunch of cool palettes, which I've talked about a lot. I wouldn't call it my favorite, though. I don't have a favorite. Like, I love MAC products, but MAC doesn't never test on, or they use things that have been tested on animals. I don't think they test on animals, but they use products that have been tested on animals. So if you're against animal testing, I understand why you wouldn't use MAC products, which my lipstick today is from MAC. So keep that in your mind. Be conscientious. You'll be in Tokyo? That's really cool. Remind everyone to give this video a like, right? Yes, like my video. Not to just fuel my ego, but because it helps the YouTube algorithm. So my YouTube channel has like 56,000 subscribers. Thank you. I love you. But my videos usually only get like 2,000 views. Or if it's like a really popular video, maybe 10,000 views. I never get 56,000 views on a video. Maybe if a video is like 5 years old, it'll eventually get there, right? But all my subscribers don't know that I'm putting out videos. Every single video I put out, someone on the comments is like, wow, you're back. And I'm like, I've been here. I put out 3 videos at least every month, usually 4. And people just don't realize that I'm here at all because YouTube doesn't want you to, because the algorithm does not like me. So by liking this video, leaving comments on the video, talking to each other, like back and forth comments on the video, the algorithm likes, it'll help me. My poor 56,000 subscribers who have forgotten I exist because YouTube doesn't show them my videos. Maybe again, they'll see me one day and they'll remember why they like my channel. That would be nice. Yes, I'm done. I've done all the promotion. I've done my like job here. I've shilled for the shilling. Yeah, I understand. You hardly get my videos recommended. It's just my lot in life. But you know what? You're here. You're with me. You're the people that matter. I'm so happy you're here. Read Sucker by Daniel Hornsby. It is a new book. It might be hard to find for cheap. A lot of the older books we read you can find used really cheap or like in libraries. Because this is a new book, you might be on a wait list for a library. So get on it quickly. Or, you know, use your Audible credit. There's an audiobook. Hope you enjoy. We will see what I think. I have not started it yet. But now I can because I finished the other book. And we will see you shortly after the 13th. If you want to know the exact date of the upcoming live stream, join the Discord server because I will share the date there. And I am talking with you every day on that Discord server. I'm always lurking even if I'm not talking. The subscription page also defies people. Like, you can subscribe, you can ring the bell, you can do all that for my YouTube channel. And it's like, I still won't show up. It's just, YouTube just is evil. It's just weird and mysterious and unpredictable. And you could be doing everything right and you could still completely miss my videos. Unless you're on my Patreon. I always send out links to every single video I post on Patreon. I don't send every link I post on Twitter because Twitter I'll put like my big videos on, but I won't put like the Vampire the Masquerade videos or smaller videos like that. But if you're on my Patreon, you'll see them all. $2 a month is what gives you early access to the videos, but you could pledge like 10 cents a month and still be on the Patreon and see everything. So just join. You'll see. I am happy to see you live too. Would I ever do an interview with the vampire movie watch along for fun? Since the series I see is fans dragging the... What? Fans are dragging the movie? Because the series... I would love to do that. The copyright bots would not like that. That would be highly illegal. I could probably fight it and get away with it, but it would be a process. Maybe if we did it in like a private live stream situation, like on my Discord server, we could do that. It's not something I could monetize, but it might be something I could do for fun. You know, even though this video you're not paying to be here, it does have ads on it, so I am monetizing it. Even if I only make like $3 off this video, it's still something, right? But I would enjoy doing that because it is my favorite vampire movie. So it's the sort of thing that I would do just for fun. Just watch it and just like give you my thoughts. See, the thing is, we'd be watching that movie and I would just be like, shh, 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 shh. No, you have to pay attention. Shh, shh. Everyone would be saying anything. We'd just be watching it. It's a good movie. Well, thank you for joining me. I have had fun. It is, oh, it's 11 o'clock exactly. Look at that. We've been here for 2.5 hours. That's a good one. When book club goes this long, we had lots to say. I enjoy talking to you about vampire books. If you have questions for me, please ask your questions in the comment of this video. The more questions I can answer, the more the video gets, you know, whatever. We've already discussed this. We've beaten this dead horse. This horse is undead and then dead again. Happy vampires, happy reading. All my links are in the description of this video. Just scroll down, open up the description. You will see them all and you will enjoy them. I will see you on the Discord server in 5 minutes, as well as tomorrow and all month. I'll be there. Thank you and good night.